And we are live. And welcome back, everyone, to the Sanctorum. My name is Widow's Son, and I will be your host once again today as we journey back into the Sanctum and discuss rather fun and interesting topics. If you are just now joining us, which I see that everyone is starting to pop in, I see my friend Sarah is here, and everyone will start to come in as the stream begins. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Let's go ahead and get that started, and go ahead and like the stream. Certainly glad to be back on this Saturday. It was trying to get everything worked out and get everything ready to go. Today is really going to be a lot of fun. I have a very good friend of mine on today by the name of Aaron Maloney, and in case any of you have not heard of this gentleman, by the time the show is over today, trust me, you will. He is a good dude, great musician, all around, just super intelligent guy. And we're going to get into all of his music here in just a few moments. So let's go ahead and get everything kind of settled down. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to bring Aaron on right now. Aaron, how are you, my friend?
How's it going, man? How are you?
Doing fine. You and I have not talked. We've talked on and off over the course of the years since you and I have met way back in our younger years, I guess you could say. God, that makes me feel really old at this point.
I know, right? I'm in my 30s now, man.
Who are you, brother? Who are you kidding? I'm fixing to be 40 in like 2 years, so I don't want to even hear that.
But
hello, Studio Double D.
Do you find it enjoyable in some ways? Like for me, I know I enjoy being I'm only 30 now, but like I enjoy being in my 30s more than I enjoyed being in my late 20s, and it's certainly more than I enjoyed being in my early 20s. Looking back.
Well, to be honest with you, the only thing that I can really say about getting older is this. My dad once told me that the men in our family, we don't get older. We're like a fine wine. We just get better with age.
There you go.
And so I tend to believe him. So the closer I get to 40, the more I'm just kind of wondering what else lies ahead of me at this point. But you're still a youngster, in my opinion. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. My back sometimes disagrees.
Your heart too.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is my heart actually is better today than it's ever been in my life, which is awesome. And mostly thanks to the wonders of technology. I have a really awesome pacemaker that I got. I did not have it when you knew me. But I got it in the last couple years, and that has been excellent. I run now every day. And like for a long time, there was a long time where like I wouldn't have been able to run a few steps without my heart like palpitating so much that like I couldn't breathe. And that was actually a lot of towards the end of the band This is the Apocalypse I was in. That was one of the reasons that like it was just getting to be too much at that point, because I was starting to have some really severe health and heart issues. So, but we could talk more about that later.
Sorry, I'm sitting here. I got my vape in my hand and talking to you at the same time. So
I have a bowl of pasta, so I'm right there.
So let's just jump right in. Now, you've been doing music for several years now, obviously. Kind of give the audience here just a little bit of background about yourself and how you got started.
Yeah. Well, I'll start from the very beginning. I was lucky enough, blessed enough, whatever you want to say, to be born into a household that was a very musical family. I'm the oldest, but my mom was a music major in college and was a French horn player and played piano. And my dad, at that point, he hadn't really done much. But as I got older, he started doing theater with us. And that was the first thing I actually got into. When I was little, I started playing drums and stuff when I was 3 or so. I think I started playing the drums. And then I got really into musical theater. That was my thing for a long time growing up, and being on stage and acting and singing and dancing and all that stuff. And see, now I'm choking on my pasta.
It knows you're lying.
Yeah, right. No, so I started doing theater and stuff, and all through high school, that's what I did. And I think maybe like 8th grade or so, I started my first band, but it was like not very good. And I mean, obviously, we were in 8th grade, and like, but I definitely was really into it. And I also grew up in the church, and so by the time I was in 8th or 9th grade, I was playing on the worship team and stuff, and that really gave me a chance to play in front of an audience and to play in front of people where I would not have gotten that otherwise. And you learn a lot from those experiences and stuff. And then I ended up, by the time I was a senior, I had started getting really into like a little bit of production, but I mean, that was like 2006. So there wasn't like what we have today as far as production. We had like, I would like go to the Apple store in the mall and like mess around on GarageBand and stuff. But I always wanted to do movie scoring. I was really into film scoring. I loved like Hans Zimmer and Danny Elfman and Alan Menken and all those people. And hold on, I'm gonna take a drink of water. This pasta like went up my nose. All right, so I was really into that, and that's what I wanted to do. That was my main desire. And so I was in college for commercial music technology and music composition. And when I finished my degree there, I guess my senior year, I started a studio because I had been recording a couple of my friends for like their senior projects and stuff, and it turned out better than I thought. So we opened, myself and a friend of mine opened up a studio and started recording bands. I was in a band at that point called Me Equals You. You can look them up on Spotify or any of that stuff. It was like a pop punk band. And then from there, I was doing the studio, and it taken off really well. We had got our own building and everything. And I was playing music all the time. And at that point, I had just started doing music full time for maybe about a year when I was recording this random band. And actually, the band wasn't even very good looking back. And I'm sure that they would honestly probably agree at this point. They're all doing great now and stuff. But that band, it was not a band that I thought was going to like, change my life in any way. But they happened to have the singer of This or the Apocalypse doing guest vocals on one of their songs. They had paid him to do like a feature. And so because of that, I had added him on Facebook to like message him about, getting his files and the format I needed him and everything. And I had just randomly posted a video on Facebook that same day of me playing drums to it wasn't even a metal song. I think it was like maybe like a drum lesson because at that point I was posting lots of lessons online about different rudiments and practice things. And Ricky, the singer, messaged me and was like, "Hey man, so like I know a band that's looking for a drummer to fill on this tour, and the tour leaves in 9 days from today, and it's a 3-month tour, and they need to learn about an hour of music. And do you know anyone, or like would you specifically be interested? I saw your drum video." And I was like, "Well, what's the band?" And he told me it was his band, but to like keep it on the hush. And because at that point their drummer was Aaron Oveka, and he had just left to join I the Breather. And so I was like, "Yeah, send me a song and I'll see if I can learn it, blah, blah, blah." And he sent me their song Subverse, which great song, but definitely the most, I don't want to say like pop song they have, but like as far as like the most, I guess, palatable. Like there wasn't a lot of crazy parts or anything that made it seem like it was impossible. And so I learned the song and sent it back to them, and they were like, "Yeah, if you want to do this, we would love to have you come out." And so I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then they sent me the rest of the songs, and I should have looked them up. And all of a sudden, it's all this crazy stuff where, like, I don't know how familiar, if you're a listener, listen to this. This is the Apocalypse. What I really like about them is their breakdowns are like really long phrases. So like instead of the kick pattern being like, it's like now that was one phrase, and then that part repeats. So you have to memorize these really complex patterns. And so by like 2 days before we were going to leave, I do not suffer from rage in any way. I suffer from a lot of things. Anger is not one of them. And that was one of the few times in my life I was throwing stuff in my studio because I was getting so frustrated, because here it is, like the biggest opportunity I'd ever had in my musical career. And I've already told them yes, and they're leaving for a tour in 2 days. And I have so many songs to still learn. But, you know, I wish I had videotaped the very first show, because I'm sure if I looked back, I probably did not do that great. But at the time, I felt like I had done awesome. And I mean, the whole time we were in the bus, I would just be practicing over and over and over again these patterns. And by the second month of the tour, I had them all down like, pat. But it was wild, and that definitely kickstarted my career in the metal scene. Actually, when he sent me the stuff, I said to him, I can definitely do this, man, but I don't have a double bass pedal. I got to see if I can like borrow one from somebody, because I just never, I mean, I had played metal in like high school, but not like, I was never like a metalhead for sure. But once I joined that band, it opened me up to an entire new scene and just brotherhood. And like, those were some of the best times of my life. And I got to, I mean, I've performed now in 48 out of 50 states. And like, I have just gotten to do all this stuff that I dreamed I'd be able to do, but never like thought it was going to become a reality. And then I was in the band for about 3.5 years. And then they ended up separating, and they're doing what they're doing now, which is a band called Hawk. And they're killing it and doing an awesome job. And so during This is the Apocalypse, I also started like kind of a side little project called Wave Runner that ended up becoming once I left This is the Apocalypse, became something way bigger than I had imagined. And we kind of did the same thing, played a lot of gigs everywhere. And then that band eventually, I kind of got into the cover band industry, and through a bunch of different stuff, Wave Runner kind of disbanded, and I became the band that I have now, called It's All Good, which is like a top 40 pop cover band. But when I say that sounds really like, ugh. But it's the most fun band I've ever been in by far. And it's because with all the things I just told you, like, so when we play like these songs, we'll do like a 45-minute mashup of different, like all these songs, will be mashed up into one 45-minute long set with no breaks, no stops. Like, and I'll make like dance remixes, or like we'll put in breakdowns. When we do Genie in a Bottle, there's a part where I do a backflip and then like metal scream, and like we literally, the guitar part's like, it's just like you'd have to see it. And actually, if you go to my Facebook page, I'll post the link after this too. But or the band's Facebook page, It's All Good. We just did a live stream last Friday. That was really high professional quality. The crew like did an incredible job, and you'll get to see some of that stuff that I'm talking about. But I mean, it's so much fun, and it kind of gets to combine a little bit of all the musical things I was just talking about, and really brings me back to the musical theater stuff I was talking about, because when I'm up there, I'm playing a character as well, and I'm, like I said, when I was little, all I did was like sing and act and dance, and now I'm lucky enough to make a living singing and dancing and acting. Like, it's pretty cool, and so. Yeah, I love it more than anything. And I'm so sad with everything going on right now that I haven't gotten to perform, other than that big live stream event, in well over a month. And I guess that pretty much catches you up to now.
Well, now the It's All Good stuff. Now, honestly, like I've listened to some of it, and I've watched a little bit of it, and I'm thinking, like, wow, good front man, but I missed that maniac that I saw on that drum set, all those years.
For
sure. So when we met several years ago, how long had you been in This or the Apocalypse up to that point?
Who was on that tour? Do you remember? Like other bands? That was
No, it was the first time you guys came to town, and it was you guys.
Sworn In?
Yes, it was the Sworn In show.
I'd probably been in the band maybe a year and a half or so.
Now did you only do the Dead Years record with them at that point?
So Dead Years was strange, because there's actually multiple drummers on that record, depending on what the song was. Because like some of the stuff Grant wrote, who's the original drummer, and some of the stuff was written by Aaron Oveka. But I think a lot of those, because that came in 2012. I actually joined the band like right when Dead Years was coming out, like right after that, actually. So most of those drums specifically are Grant and Aaron Oveka.
So you didn't actually get to do a record with
we did singles, and actually I have an entire record on my computer that was never released to the public that is awesome, and maybe I'll show you some of that in our own private time sometime, because it's some of the craziest stuff we've done. But yeah, I was kind of in between after Dead Years came out up until when they ended up disbanding, which was 2015 maybe. So I can't believe it's been that long already.
I know. And hello, Miss Whipflash, my dear. So glad to see you. Let's see. We've had a few other people pop in. My buddy Justin is here.
What's up, Justin?
Nice to see you here. Wanderer, nice to see you here. My buddy Stu Dog, Stu D-O-double-G. He was on with me last week talking about scammers, hackers, and spam, and all.
I just watched that. Yeah, I just watched part of that. Where is he from?
He's a Scotsman. He's a good Scotsman. So
no, where is he from? I reckon his accent.
Stu Dog, I will let you put that in the chat. He's from somewhere, and he's still in Scotland, but
he's Scotland. Okay.
Yeah. But he came on last week, and we had a really, really good time. So but yes, that unreleased because you know me, as long as you know me, you know that I'm, to this day, I'm still a huge TOTA fan, and I hate that you guys aren't together anymore.
Well, they are kind of together.
Well, I know, but I'm talking about under that banner.
Yeah. The people that are still in the band are Jack and Ricky. They're both still doing Hawk, and it's cool. Their drummer now, his name's Adam. He's like an awesome dude and an awesome photographer. And he, when I was in the band, he was really young, because I think now he's probably 22 or so, maybe a little older, but I think he's about 22. So at the time he was like maybe 17. And but I mean, he was, even back then, like, he was like when we were in town, like his mom would like make us dinner, and like he was always like coming to the shows and like being supportive and stuff. And now he's in the band. And so like if you're a musician out there, like a younger musician or somebody looking to do stuff, like practice your craft a ton, but then also like make those positive connections. Because like I was just saying, like one of the worst bands I've ever recorded ended up leading to the biggest opportunity I had had in my music career up till that point, so you never know when something that might be seemingly small could lead to something huge.
GNM wanted to know where you're from.
So I live in Delaware, which is actually the reason when I was talking about the cover band, this area is the best. People don't realize this, and I would say even the world, but definitely in the country, it's the best spot in the country/world for cover bands, because within 3 hours I can drive to Philadelphia, to Washington DC, to Baltimore, to New York City, to all of the beaches and like the coastal stuff, to Atlantic City where all the casinos are. I can go to Virginia Beach. I can go to, there's so many cities. Whereas when you're in California or someplace like that, or even like, especially in the Midwest, you might have that one city, but like everything else is like pretty far away. Like you're an LA band, or you're a San Francisco band, or wherever you're from. Whereas here, I can be in Philadelphia one night, and then the very next night be in Baltimore, and then the very next night be in Washington, D.C. And so you can build a really big market around here. And there's just so many places to play. We go up regularly to Boston, and like we've had a residency down in Key West in Florida. And like, so anywhere along the East Coast, there's just so many cities that you can go to. So it's a phenomenal place for music.
So before we continue this, I just happened to remember this. And we were talking before we went live. First of all, me personally, I want to congratulate you on getting married.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's
Um,
been maybe almost 3 years now.
yeah, and please send my condolences to that poor woman for having to
I
put up.
know, right?
And you're about to be a father for the first time. Very, very, very big congratulations for you on that, my friend.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited. I'm stoked. It kind of was really good timing because we got a new house last May, and then also with all that's going on right now, as much as it sucks in so many ways, it's nice that her first trimester is while everything's shut down, so she kind of is getting her own pregnancy leave and doesn't have to worry because she's a bartender at like a really busy bar, and so it would be wild to be on her feet all day and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. And the morning sickness is definitely hitting her pretty hard. So
yeah. We were just discussing that before we came on.
yeah.
Uh, so now you didn't meet this poor girl like one night when you were like drunk or anything, did you?
No, it was actually, and I think this is the reason we ended up getting married. It was cool. That one band I was talking about, Me Equals You. She actually was dating the guitarist of my band at that point, but that was, I mean, she was like 17 or 18 at the time. So this was, I mean, a long, long time ago. And then we, they broke up and stuff, and we never talked for probably 5 or 6 years. Like I just didn't see her or anything. I was at a restaurant she was working at with my mom, and she randomly was there, and I was like, "Oh, whoa, Stephanie got like really hot. That's crazy." Because I never thought of her as that before, because she was much younger than, not much younger than me, but like at the time she seemed a lot younger than me. She's only like 3 years younger than me, but at that time I was like 21 and she was like 18. She seemed younger than me at the time, and also she was like dating the guitarist in my band, but he was a really, really shitty person, and so thankfully for that, because that allowed them to break up. And then yeah, years later I saw her there, and then it was weird, dude. I was I forget exactly what I was doing, but I just kept having this feeling that like somebody needed to talk, and I posted something on Facebook that was just like, and I do this from time to time, but I was just like, if anybody out there needs to talk or vent or anything right now, like hit me up. I'm here, and like I'm here to listen. And like a bunch of people did, and she did as well. And we just talked for a while and really, really connected well. And so that went on for a couple of days, and eventually I asked her if she wanted to, go out on a date, and we went on a date. And I had a lot of especially from this apocalypse days, like what you were talking about with being drunk and meeting women, like that was kind of a vice of mine, and like definitely a negative personality trait, like looking back. And something I struggled with a lot was that. And so it was interesting on our first date, like all I could think was like, yeah, I just don't want to ever hurt this girl. This girl's been hurt enough by other people, and like I need to try to not do that one way or another. And I don't know, man. We get along so well. And within the next, about a year later, we got engaged, and then a year after that, we got married. And like, I mean, I'm just so grateful to have her in my life. I would not be the person I am today without her, and that is for sure. She definitely balanced me out in so many positive ways.
Well, that I'm really happy for you guys. And when I saw that you were getting married, I was just like, man, I'm like I'm happy for him, but like and you and I have talked on and off over the last several years, and it's good that you and I have got to stay in touch, because you and I have become friends a little bit over
Yeah.
time. And I was like, wow, if Aaron can get married, then there's hope for all of us.
Right? Dude, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it was weird. It was like, I often say this. It was like, sorry, I'm eating my pasta too. You're vaping, I'm pastaing, and between the two of us, we're gonna have lots of like pauses. No, um, it was almost like an addiction was cured overnight. Like if I was an alcoholic, like it would be like the ability to all of a sudden not drink at all, and like that would be so wild to do that. Obviously, that's not how addiction works, but like I went from genuinely, I would probably say that in a lot of ways, I was definitely a sex addict, and like went from that to all of a sudden, like, because see, here's the thing. My all right, let's backtrack a little bit, because I've actually thought about this a lot. When I was younger, I got made fun of a lot for being gay, and I'm not gay. That's the thing. Like, I never have been, but because I did like musical theater and stuff like that, that was definitely something that people bullied me for a lot. So as I got older, I think there was this subconscious desire to be like, well, I'll prove to people I'm not gay because I'll just make sure I always have like a girlfriend and have like women around me and blah, 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 blah. And like that definitely led to a lot of issues because I then found my satisfaction and my gratification or like my opinion of who I am based upon the women I could have around. And if I didn't have a girlfriend, I felt like a loser. And if I wasn't seeing somebody, then I felt like and like it was a horrible, horrible way to live. And when I met my wife, all of a sudden it went from finding my gratification in how many people I could get with to finding my gratification in just being genuine and like with this one person. It's really hard to explain out loud, but like it really felt like a light switch just kind of like went off, and I like all of a sudden like saw, quote unquote, saw the error of my ways, but like just realized like that my desire to be accepted by others, in turn I was hurting others in order to do that. And it was definitely a profound revelation that I don't know if everybody gets when they meet their wife, but that is definitely what happened for me. And now it's weird, like it's such a turn because in the cover band industry there's just a lot of drunk middle-aged women in their 40s and 50s that you know, are just drunk and you know, try to hit on you or do things like that. And it's just so interesting to see now from this other perspective, because at one point that would have fed my ego in such a significant way, and now it's just like I don't want to say I like pity them, but I like feel bad for them because I see that they're doing the same thing that I once was doing. They're trying to find their gratification in trying to flirt with the singer or trying to, you know what I mean? It's like, and I see that now.
Everybody wants the front guy. That's what it is.
It's also my band in general. I'm really lucky because the other three dudes in my band are all really, really handsome as well. Like our drummer, man, like in the straightest way possible. Like if you go and look at pictures, man, you'll see he looks like an Abercrombie model, and he's like in the military, and he's just like, you'll see. So like in general, we're kind of marketed as a pretty boy band. I'm probably the most like rugged looking one at this point now, because I got long hair and stuff. But like, yeah, they're like our manager will like, he like makes sure, he like is very particular about how we dress and like how we present ourselves, and like we'll tell people if they need to like get their hair cut and stuff. And like some people would be against that, but at the same time, like it's been working really well for us. And he's been in the industry. I mean, I don't know how old he is. We always take guesses. I have no idea how old he is, but he's been in the industry for at least probably 40 years, 50, yeah, probably at least 40 years. And so he, probably even longer than that, but he, so I trust him with those things at this point. And so, yeah.
Well, okay. So getting, and we'll get, you know, back onto that here in just a little bit, but now going back into the whole music side of it. Now, were you into that style of music that you were playing when you were in This or the Apocalypse, or was it something that you were more introduced to while you were playing with them? I mean, what?
Yeah.
So it wasn't something like you were really into at that particular time before.
No. So when I was younger, like high school, I loved metal. I was really into Christian metal in particular, like Demon Hunter, Under Oath, August Burns Red, stuff like that. And I was really, really into that stuff at that point. And then when I went to college, I kind of got out of it because I was in music college. So like we were studying a lot of classical stuff and like jazz and like fusion and like real, you know what I mean? Like very avant-garde, like proficient type stuff. And then that was kind of what I had gotten really into at that point. But it was actually funny. My band played a festival. The band I was in, Me Equals You, was on tour, and we played a festival with This is the Apocalypse. And I did not give them a chance. They came on. And I remember literally saying to my buddy, because he was like he was stoked to see him. And I was like, dude, if I have to hear like one more generic shitty metal band today, I'm going to blow my brains out. And I just left. I didn't even watch their set. And literally a month and a half after that was when Ricky contacted me about being in the band. And so I knew who the band was. I was very familiar with them at the time. And but I didn't know their music. And once I started listening to it, I was like, oh, no, this is awesome. What had happened was, you know, and I do not by any means take this as like me shitting on like local metal bands, but that festival had a couple headliners that were like the bigger metal bands, but they had like a ton of like generic shitty local metal bands that all sounded exactly the same, and I had already heard like 20 of them that day. So by the time This Is the Apocalypse came on, I just wrote it off. But then I like was listening to it and I'm like, this drummer is insane when I was trying to learn it. And I looked up Grant McFarland and then realized he is just a god at drums. If you don't know who Grant McFarland is, he was the original drummer of This Is the Apocalypse. And now he actually drums for Galactic Empire, the Star Wars metal band. That's his like baby. He writes all the music. He does all that stuff. And
if my listeners out there, like if they go onto YouTube and you look up This or the Apocalypse, I mean, number one, you're going to find some great music, of course. And like I was just saying a few minutes ago, I'm to this day, I'm still a huge fan. So like if they go and they found like the Subverse video, that's Grant playing in that video.
Yeah, you'll see Grant. So Grant is playing on the first two albums, and then he plays some on Dead Years. I think he played In Wolves and a couple other songs. And then Aaron Oveka did those. And Aaron's a really good drummer as well. Grant is a different kind of drummer. Like the stuff he does at that time, especially like nobody was playing like that other than like maybe August Burns Red. But people don't realize like, okay, so we call it the Lancaster music scene. It's Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And people don't realize that like that music scene had a very specific sound that nowhere else had at the time. And the three main bands, or I guess four main bands from like that area, but like let's say the three were August Burns Red, Texas in July, and This Is the Apocalypse. And they all literally come from the exact same town. And some of them literally live in the same development. And so it's crazy that you have three big name bands like that all came from the same town. That's like it's not even a huge town, Lancaster, Pennsylvania is Amish County. So it's wild that kind of happened, but that music scene was very like had a very specific sound and really, got out there and did well.
Well, now, I mean, you said, now, how far are you from, now you said you were pretty, like, not too far from Boston, correct?
No, I'm decently far from Boston's like the farthest away. That's about 7 hours from me. I'm in Delaware. So Delaware is like, I'm about an hour south of Philadelphia and about an hour north of Baltimore. Like if you're going from Baltimore to Philly, you basically have to pass my house.
Well, the reason I was asking is because now usually that particular part of the country is more well known for its hardcore scenes, like New York, Boston, Philly, things like that. Those cities have really well established hardcore scenes. Did you guys, when you were playing with TOTA, were you guys accepted and like would you go play those cities knowing that they had a big hardcore scene? Were you guys welcome?
Yeah, well the thing is Lancaster is only maybe an hour from Philadelphia as well, so like that's the biggest, like Philly was definitely the biggest city that was close to where we lived. And so so that alone made it so that like that Philly was like definitely big for them. And like we played New York City. New York City is a nightmare to play though because we had a bus and a trailer. So the toll alone was about $78 going in and going out. And then imagine trying to park right like by Times Square with a giant bus and a trailer. And when you're playing like venues that like they don't have like specific like tour bus parking or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's a venue in Memphis, Tennessee called Minglewood Hall, and a few years back, me and a brother of mine went up to Memphis to see the Blackest of the Black tour. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's a big tour that Glenn Danzig does every year, and he had Super Joint Ritual as the co-headliner. And they literally had to park their buses next to the venue on the street. Like they had like no like specific area to park for them to park. So they had to literally line the buses up next to the venue, and then the loading had to be like done in a side door. So I felt really bad for their road crews, but then at the same time, I'm like, listen, I've done that kind of work, and no, just
Oh yeah, dude.
fucking no, man.
Dude, it's wild because I'm like, I always say my only like redneck trait is that I am like unbelievably good at backing up and like parallel parking a trailer now. Like because I drive it all the time, and just between those situations and like the bands I'm in now and stuff, there's so many places where like you don't have a choice. You have to park, and the only spot available is a spot that's going to leave you like 6 inches on either side of the van and trailer, and you got to parallel park it. And so you just have to learn, and you learn from trial and error. And like, dude, there was one time with This Is the Apocalypse, we were driving, and we turned down this road this was like, we had phone GPSs, but that was like just kind of like, it wasn't as rampant and stuff. And so we had like a regular GPS in the car, and it took us down this road, and all of a sudden the road was like a dead end, but it was a single lane road, and on either side of it there were like it was like slopes off, like drainage ditches and stuff. So there was literally no way to turn around, and it was this winding road, and we had already went about 1.5 miles down this road, and I had to back the whole thing up for 1.5 miles in reverse. And man, like, and it was at night, it was raining, it was like all the worst possible situations. And but I'll tell you what, man, after that, everything has seemed easy since then.
So now you were talking about when you were playing with this, or the Apocalypse, and you were recorded on like singles and things like that. Now, as you have, and you and I have talked over the years, now you know that my favorite song is Damaged Good. It's always been Damaged Good. I love all of it because it's all amazing.
Yeah.
You guys and all of the guys in the band are super, super talented. I hope that there will be a reunion maybe at some point. That would be awesome. I would drive wherever I had to just to see. Were you playing on the Damaged Good track? Was that one that you were on?
So no, I joined right as that was coming out, like literally when that came out. So Aaron and Becca tracked the drums on that, but he never played them live or anything. He played them in the studio, but by the time they released the song, I was in the band at that point. So so I'm the only drummer that's ever played that song live.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because it was weird. Like, they had recorded the song but not released it, and so by the time it came out and and all that, like, I was in the band, but I did not track them on the album. But the very first time they ever played the show live, like their first show after that song had come out, when we played it live, I was in the band at that point. It was wild.
Because that drum video that's up of you that's up on YouTube, that was actually filmed at the first time, the show that I saw you guys at the first time, because I had met you guys earlier that day, because you had actually came in for lunch where I was working at the time. That first of all, that video, like, everybody that I've ever shown that video to, they're just like, man, this guy looks like his head's going to explode. I'm thinking, well, of course, but like, and once they like actually watch it, like, I always tell him, I'm like, now watch him very carefully, because he's going to start pulling some Tommy Lee, like old Motley Crue stick throwing here in just a few minutes. But that was all that video. Like, I still go and watch that video to this day, because, you know, I played drums here and there when I get a chance. I mean, I'm not as good as, you know, you or Tommy Lee or Vinnie Paul or anybody else. I wish.
Well, I'm not as good as Tommy Lee or Vinnie Paul either. So,
well, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to debate you on that one. But. So,
well, let's say that I'm definitely not as influent. Like, I had the internet and stuff to show me. They like revolutionized brand new like ways of playing drums. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, as a drummer and just an all-around music lover, when you started playing drums, you know, when you were listening to metal and everything like that, like, who were your biggest influences? Like, who made you want to start, you know, who made you want to pick up the sticks and start playing?
So when I was younger, we only were allowed to really listen to Christian music. So actually, there's a drummer from a band called the Newsboys that he's still to this day. I mean, unbelievable, like tight drummer. He live, he sounds like a machine. He doesn't play anything crazy, but everything he plays is like pocket. He knows exactly what to play. But when I started getting into metal, I loved Aaron Gillespie from Under Oath. He was awesome. And then what really like changed my whole mind on like drums and like metal drumming were two guys. One, Blake Richardson, who is the drummer from Between the Buried and Me. Unbelievable. And I actually know him very well and personally now. And it's a long story, but like he's definitely he was my biggest like influence that has now become like a friend. But he's unbelievable. And then
did you have a fanboy moment when you met him for the first time?
Yeah, my first time meeting him, we actually did a drum session together where like we just kind of like hung out for like 2 hours and like showed each other different beats and stuff like that. And actually my biggest fanboy moment was when I first joined There's the Apocalypse. We went to a bonfire and we're all like hanging out and like drinking beers and stuff like that. And I'm talking to this dude forever. And then he says like, oh yeah, I play drums too. And we're talking about drums, and I was like, oh, well, what's your band? And he said August Burns Red, and I realized it was Matt Greiner, but I didn't recognize him because I had only really seen him when like the band first came out and he was like way younger, and at this point he had a beard and stuff, and like all of a sudden I have to like not act like all of a sudden I'm shocked or like excited, or you know what I mean, because like here I'm just joining this band, and I'm pretty sure the party was like it was like a going away party because we were about to leave for tour, and I like just met all these guys and stuff, and so like that was definitely a fanboy moment for me. But the one that was Blake Richardson, it definitely was the case as well. And then Chris Penny, who is the original drummer for Dillinger Escape Plan, and then he played for Coheed and Cambria for many years. That dude is unreal. I mean, his drum beats, if you're not familiar with him, it sounds like they're completely random, like he's just hitting stuff at random. But I have drum books of the transcriptions for all their albums, and he's notated them out. And I mean, he's not only is he an unbelievable drummer, but like he knows music theory better than any drummer I've ever seen in my life. He knows so much about the theory of drums and about like music notation and all that stuff. He's unreal. So those two guys, Dillinger Escape Plan. What's up?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying those two guys, Dillinger Escape Plan and Between the Buried and Me.
Oh yeah, I love now Dillinger. I've dabbled in a little bit over the years, and what I've listened to I really love, and of course I absolutely just adore the Alaska album from Between the Buried and Me. But he sounds like the gentleman you were just talking about. He sounds like he kind of sounds like Danny Carey from Tool.
It is a lot like that, but like. And this is not in any way like saying anything bad about Danny because he's great, but like, dude, the drummer from Dillinger is like so many worlds ahead of like anyone else out there. I'll send you some clips after this, and you'll just be like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like it's stuff you couldn't even fathom that would be possible on drums, and he plays it. It's almost like, I don't know how familiar you are with skateboarding, but there was this one skateboarder, Rodney Mullins, that he was banned from being in skate competitions because what he could do at the time was so unbelievably revolutionary and like unique that no one could even compete with him because he wasn't doing any of the same tricks as everybody else. He was doing these other things that nobody could even fathom. And it's kind of like that with this guy. It's like, it's a whole nother world. There's actually a video of the drummer that replaced Chris Penny. His name's Billy Reimer. He's also an unbelievable drummer. He was 17 years old at the time, and he was in I think it was Drum Fight 9, and it was him against Mike Portnoy, who Mike Portnoy is known as one of the greatest metal drummers of all time as well. And dude, this 17-year-old kid just destroys Mike Portnoy to the point that the last round, Mike Portnoy puts down his sticks and stands up and starts clapping because he just knows he's been like blown away. And that's the kid that took over for Chris Penny in Dillinger Escape Plan.
Well, you know, now we're gonna have to agree to disagree when it comes to, because Danny Carey is definitely one of my like end all be all when it comes to drummers, man. Like the guy
Oh,
is
for sure. He's
um
phenomenal. But I'll send you specifically some songs that when you hear it, it's not even that you'll hear it and say, how, not even how is he getting his hands to do this? How is his brain able to count this? Like Dillinger is known for having like literally it just sounds like like the most random beats that make no sense, but they know exactly what the time signatures. I'll show you. Yeah, I shouldn't say like different. It's exactly
well
like
there was
what
a
we were
lot
talking
of
about with like, okay, so like Rodney Mullins and Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk's arguably the greatest skateboarder who have ever lived, but he didn't get banned from competitions for it being unfair. Rodney Mullins did, just because it wasn't that he was doing like better tricks than other people. It was just that he was doing tricks that everybody else had no idea how to even comprehend what was going on. And that's kind of how it is with Chris Penny. And like most other like huge name drummers will say the same thing about Chris Penny. Like he's the drummer that like he's a drummer's drummer. He's like nobody has any idea like how he does what he does. And I only know of like two other drummers that can even like play the songs that he played. It's weird, man. It's kind of like out of this like unworldly. Like there's no way that somebody should be able to count the time signatures he does in his head. It's wild.
well now I've heard now there was when I first started getting into like that I guess you call it like post hardcore genre, I guess. I was introduced to bands like Bloodlet and Glassjaw and things like that. And one of the guys that I used to hang out with in the music scene back in the Mississippi, um, he was really into Bloodlet and Glassjaw, and we were working together one night, and he put on this Bloodlet album, and he started talking to me about off time hardcore, and I'm thinking, okay. And then he started playing, Bloodlet and Glassjaw, and I could hear it. Like I could hear the drums were not always in time with everything else. And so that's one thing. Like I've always like if a vocalist will grab me like as soon as I hear them open their mouth, that's great. But if drummer will blow me away like as soon as he starts hitting the skins, man, I'm like, okay, I don't care what the rest of this sounds like. That drummer's got my attention.
Yeah, dude, I'll send you some videos after this of Dillinger that'll just like it'll make your mouth drop. Like it's unreal, man. Like I think you'll love them.
So would you so after you were listening to mostly like Christian metal and stuff like that, did you ever at any point like go back and like touch into the classics, like and I know they're not really a metal band, but drummers like John Bonham, Led Zeppelin, Phil from Motorhead, a lot of like the old hardcore drummers like Robo from Black Flag and stuff like this. Did you ever like venture back into those genres? Did they have any kind of influence on you?
Not too much. Some, I mean, like with John Bonham and stuff like that, like those I had gotten into in college because I was doing like drum lessons and stuff. And actually my drum instructor in college, his name was William Kerrigan. He played with the Beach Boys for many years. He toured with Michael Jackson. He played with like a lot of really big names. And so he knew a lot of those like really, major influential drummers and stuff, and had gotten me into a lot of that. But like much more of the more mainstream metal drummers of that, like what you were talking about, like John Bonham and stuff, more so than like Motorhead and stuff. It was weird because like my parents weren't really into that kind of music either, so it just never really was like the non-Christian music we listened to growing up was like Michael Jackson and like that type of stuff, like very like dancey, groovy stuff. And because my mom was like really into disco and stuff when she was younger. So
I'm sorry.
yeah. But at the same time, I mean, it's weird. I make like a good portion of my living dancing with this cover band, and like I do like backflips and stuff, and like and those are things that like she definitely passed on to me. But I mean, but don't get me wrong, I love Michael Jackson as like a like maybe not as a human, but like as a musical artist. And so I guess I should more say like I like Quincy Jones, who wrote and produced all that stuff. But like,
Right.
But like I think it's hard for anybody to like listen to like the Jackson 5 and say like, oh yeah, this wasn't like, this is really good, fun, like well written music that came out in a time where like it was really hard to produce music and they were doing this stuff, and like Michael Jackson was 8 years old and singing like perfectly on key. That just doesn't happen, you know.
Right.
So
Well, and one thing, and this is something me and a lot of my friends have talked about over the years. Of course, you know, we're all lovers of metal and punk and hardcore and all of this other kind of stuff. But then, like me, I've just over like the last, God, probably 10 years or so. I have my brother that I was just talking about, who went to see the Blackest of the Black tour with me. He really turned me back on to a lot of the more classic stuff, like, you know, and then of course we're getting into frontmen here, but you know, Bowie and you know, Zappa, and then you know a lot of the older, you know, a lot of the bands from the '90s, Primus and Soundgarden, and you know, all this other kind of, you know, all this stuff that I hadn't really thought about. And then of course he was the one who actually, after I fought tooth and nail to never listen to them, he told me, he was talking to me about the Grateful Dead one day, and he was just like, dude, he was just like, listen, go listen from 67 to 81 and you won't be disappointed. After 81, it gets really, really bad. And I'm like, okay. So finally I broke down, and I did. I listened to the Grateful Dead from 67 to 81, and now I'm a total Deadhead, which is weird for me to say. But now that you're a front man, are you, and of course, you know, you were talking about Michael Jackson and everything like that. Do you look to those that have gone before us, that, you know, that and obviously now that we've lost, because, you know, we've lost Lemmy, we've lost Prince, we've lost David, you know, and rest in peace to all of them, because they were amazing artists and musicians, and they brought joy to the world in their own little way. Do you look to them now as part of your influence as being a frontman?
Yeah, man, I would definitely say like Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury, and like, I mean, modern ones would be like kind of like Bruno Mars, but like as far as the classics go, like Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury, I mean, a lot of those people. One metal band I actually forgot. It's not even metal; it's punk. But I randomly, when I was younger, I really got into Rancid. I don't know if you ever messed with them at all, but just because their bass player Matt Freeman was like, I'd never heard bass played like that before, and I think I first heard about them in I was playing like Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX, or like one of those video games, and they were on the soundtrack. Actually, yeah, it was Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX, and that was the game. At that point, was only listening to like what I was talking about earlier, like the Christian music and stuff. And that video game introduced me to so many artists, because if you want to listen to a great video game soundtrack, that is it. It has Deftones, it has Rancid, it has Dropkick Murphys, it has Sublime, and like all of those bands I had never heard of before in my life until that time. And now all of a sudden it was introducing me a little bit to all of these bands. And so, and actually I think Sublime, that was another one that I was like into pretty early on. I know a lot of people like hate on Sublime, but Sublime is such an interesting band for me because their singer died before he ever got famous. The band didn't get famous until after he was dead. And it's such an encouraging story in a way, because you never know what impact you're going to have. Even after you're gone, your music could impact people in a way that you never know. I mean, every cover band I know covers Sublime, every single one. And there's like 10 different Sublime songs that you can cover, but they really only came out with one, maybe two albums, but really only one real album. And that was that, like, while he was alive. Everything else was like they took demos and re-released them and stuff like that. but like that's such a weird thing to think that like this guy Bradley died never knowing that he was going to be famous, let alone to the point that I mean, you can name a Sublime song, you could sing a Sublime song, anybody can either sing at least part of a Sublime song or they've heard it, and this guy died never having any idea that he was going to have that influence. That's so interesting, you know.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, and that brings up, you're talking about getting, famous after, after somebody passes away. I mean, yeah, that, take it back to the grunge move, going back to the grunge movement of the 90s. You had bands, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Tad, Green, um, Mudhoney, Mother Love Bone, all of these bands. And I want to, and if someone in the chat wants to correct me, that's perfectly fine. But I believe it was Mother Love Bone that was slated to be the one that was going to break. And then their lead singer died of a heroin overdose. Like, I think the day before their album was about to drop. And then Nirvana was the one that broke the scene open. So as a front man, and I've picked up the microphone a few times in my life and been pulled on stage by friends of mine's bands and stuff and all of this. If now when you're on stage and you've got the microphone in your hand, are you channeling those that have influenced you, or are you just kind of doing your own thing mixed with a little bit of them in there with it?
So I don't know if I think about it that way, but I do. Like I said earlier, I play a character on stage, and I don't mean that in like a way that I'm disingenuous, but I mean it in the way of Aaron Maloney and the Aaron you see on stage are two very different people. I'm much more reserved and like I talk the way I talk now, and but even like the way I talk on stage is much more like is everybody ready? Like it has that like a different timbre to my voice, a different like feeling, and I think that allows me to do much more because it gets rid of all of my insecurities as Aaron Maloney and gets rid of all the like things I might be anxious about or worry about, and instead I'm this character, and for the next 3 hours all I have to do is kick ass and like have the time of my life and make sure that the people in the audience, they could be anywhere, they could be doing anything, and instead they've chose to come and hang out and watch my band. And I make a really conscious decision to lock eyes with every person in the audience at least at one point, no matter who they are, because I find even that tiny little, even if it's only for a second, that connection makes all the difference with the vibe in the room. It brings their attention to what's going on.
That's one thing when I go to shows like that. When I saw TOTA, for the first time, and then you guys came back, and I was when I found out that you guys came back, immediately I messaged all of you, and I'm just like, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
I'm gonna be there, and I would watch Ricky, and the one thing, Ricky is a great frontman. I will never ever take that away from him. He is absolutely amazing on stage. The one thing that did bother me about those two shows was that the crowd wasn't really getting into it, I guess, as much as I was. And that's one thing that when I go to a gig, like I'm there to see a band that I'm really into, and I'm going to throw down and I'm going to have a good time. But if and if the front man is interacting with the crowd, that makes it even better.
Absolutely.
Whether he's jumping off stage or I'll give you two examples. The first one, I went to see. I don't know how familiar you are with the metal bands out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Phil from Pantera, of course, you know who I'm talking about, or at least I hope you do. He has a band called Down, and it's just this slow not slow, but more grooving Southern style metal kind of thing, and a lot of soul in it. Like you can definitely feel the soul of New Orleans in that. Well, they were on tour and they had this band called Harp opening for them. And their front guy is just this muscled up guy by the name of Sean. This guy spent probably a total of 10 minutes on stage. He has this massive mic cord. The guy has a beer in one hand and the microphone in the other. He is literally walking through the crowd, screaming his heart out. And it was one of the most brilliant performances that I had ever seen up to that point. And the next one was a tour came back through my hometown in Mississippi, and it's actually where my buddy Justin is from as well. Thy Art is Murder. I've lost him. Hopefully his phone has not died on him. So I do apologize for the delay. I'm going to try to get him back in here as quickly as I can. So in the meantime, this will give me a chance to talk about what's coming up on the show. Now, next week, next Saturday, I will not be doing a live stream. I'm actually going to be trying to push that. There he is. He had to switch to his computer. There you are. You had to switch to your computer. I figured your phone may have died on you. Can you hear me?
Hello.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Does it sound weird?
Okay. No.
Cool.
No,
I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I couldn't hear you anymore. So.
You got dropped from the stream. I figured your phone may have died or something. So.
No, we're good. I opened it on my computer just in case, but yeah, we're good.
Okay, but the other one was a band from Australia called Thy Art is Murder.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Oh, yeah. And they came and played a gig, and the front guy literally just hopped off the stage, got in the middle of the pit area, and suddenly there is a circle pit going around this guy, and he's getting into it, man. I mean, he is just so into what he's doing, and it was amazing. Like, he did 2 songs like that, just standing in the middle of a circle pit. So, if a front guy like that can grab your attention, I mean, that's going to be one of the main things. Because without a good front man, your band can either sink or swim, basically.
Absolutely, man. And the way I look at it is, like, I have the highest probability of being able to get the audience involved because I am the frontman of the band. And so if I see people like not involved or they're like, talking to each other or something like that, I'll go down and I'll start dancing right with them and like give them the mic to like sing in. And now all of a sudden, now they're into it for the rest of the night because that's all they needed to get, drawn back in. And so, it really is the frontman's job to really capture that audience and be aware of that. And there are a lot of times where I'll find that I'm not connecting or I've gotten distracted and I'm in my head and stuff. And I'll look out to the audience and I'll be able to definitively see the impact that's having. And then as soon as I start getting back into it, you're able to draw them back into it in a really phenomenal way. And I mean, I'm really lucky because all the guys in my band are very engaging with the audience as well. And we have 3 people that sing. I sing the majority of stuff, but they also, because I play a bunch of different instruments in the band. And so there's parts where I'll go and play a different instrument and they'll sing or lead a song too. And they're great at it as well. So, I mean, because I have drums that I actually play drums in It's All Good. I have my own little setup of these drums that I built that have lights built into them. And my buddy wired them with all the lights and stuff. And it's actually fun because I don't have to worry about playing the like whole drum kit. I just worry about doing the stuff you were talking about when I was drumming, where I throw my arms around and like juggle the sticks and and I have like light up sticks or like glow in the dark sticks that I use. And like with our light show, they look really crazy. And so I still get to do all that stuff, like the fun showy stuff that I got to do before, but I don't have to worry about the like setting an entire drum kit up every night.
Yeah, I remember that second show that you guys came through and played. Like it was me and a friend of mine that came to the show, and we actually ended up helping you set your gear up.
Yeah.
And I remember you looking at me and him like, and just telling us like, thank you for helping me, because this would have taken me like an hour and a half or longer to get put together.
Oh yeah, man. Definitely. And I mean, I thought when I would be the front man that would get easier, but live I play 9 different instruments at some point, and so I still have to set up my giant keyboard setup and my electric drums and my drums that I bill, and like all my, because now my band now, like we have all wireless mics and like wireless in-ear systems and stuff, which is awesome. But it's just we run our own in-ear mix every night, so we still have to set, like, we have a big mixer we set up every night and like all that stuff. So there still is a lot, but because we're a cover band, there's like a little bit of a better budget involved and stuff, like a lot better budget involved. And so we actually have a crew that's able to come with us and do a lot of that. And it's nice because I'll be setting my stuff up, and then as soon as I finish, I'll turn around and everything else is already done. And I'm like, yes. Whereas normally it's like I would finish my keyboard and now I got to go run these mic lines and I got to do that. And it's like, it's so nice having that. So
with now, are you guys just strictly sticking to the cover thing, or are you writing your own material? Or?
No, yeah, we do. So we have I have a bunch of stuff I've written, but we do one song right now that's an original song, and it's the coolest thing, man, because we haven't even released it yet, but we have a pretty good, because with a cover band you're playing the same areas all the time, right? Like even if it's like different venues, you're in the same. So you'll build a following, and people follow your band to all these different venues, and they know all. It's weird, dude. We'll play sometimes, and everyone in the audience is like, when it's a home show, they're singing every word to this song, and we have not put it out yet. They've only learned the words from seeing it live, and that to me is like the coolest feeling. But what you do with this, because you don't want first off, the original song has to be something that is just as catchy as all the cover songs you're going to play, because you don't want people to go to go grab their beer during your original song. You don't want that to be the one that's the break. So what we actually do is I've actually made it in with all these other mashups I was talking about, where we're playing all these other songs that people know, and then it goes right into our original song. And I will say, I'll be like, this next song's an original. I hope you enjoy it. I'll drive to Kent, and it goes right into our song. And as soon as our song is done, we go right into the next song that's also a cover. And that way they never get a chance to go sit down. Literally the bass drum doesn't even stop. It goes right into our song, and then it keeps going into the next song. So you never lose that like momentum, because with like metal bands and like with like when I was touring with The Apocalypse and stuff, they're going there because they know the bands, because they, you know what I mean? They're following the music and stuff. With this, a lot of times the audience is split. Half of them are there to see the band, and half of them are there because they just they go to that bar all the time. And it might be their first time ever hearing you. And so if you want to catch them, you want to hook them with that stuff, it's really important to put it in a good spot in the set, and to make it so that it's not like you're taking a break and you're grabbing like a drink of water and stuff, and then you're like, all right, so here, we're going to do an original song. Because there has been times where I've announced it and like people will like roll their eyes and go sit down. And it's like, but 10 seconds into the song, once they hear it and get to that first chorus, they're back up dancing again. And then so many people will tell us afterwards, like, that's our favorite song you've played. I'll send that one to you after this too, man. I only have a demo of it, but it's by demo. I mean, it's like, I just have to re-record the vocals. It's almost done. So, and it just needs to be mixed better, but it's fun, man. It's the type of, and for me, there's science to it. Like so people love to hate on pop music. And honestly, there is a lot to hate about a lot of pop music. But from a scientific standpoint, pop stands for popular. And if you're the best quote about it, I'm not a Nickelback fan, but there's a Chad Kroeger quote where somebody was ragging on him and said, you know, anybody could write a #1 hit, like, and this one guy tweets to him like, you're not that special. Anyone can write a #1 hit. And all he replied was, well, write one then. And that's the exact way, like, it's so easy for us to like hate on mainstream music, but
what pop music is it's the only goal of it is to reach the most amount of people possible. You're trying to reach the largest audience. And there's a lot of science that goes into that, even if the song is really crappy, because ultimately the music is a reflection of the society as a whole. So if you're trying to write a number one hit, there are certain things you have to keep in mind. There's a study that they did of, do you know who Max Martin is?
Yes.
He's pretty much the number one pop songwriter of all time. He wrote all of the like Backstreet Boys stuff and NSYNC and Britney Spears, and like all those like songs that we love to hate, but that like every person knows, like Hit Me Baby One More Time, all that stuff, even up till now. And they did a huge analysis of his songs to see what is it that makes his songs work. Like, how is he able to write this many pop songs? And the one thing that they found that they all had in common was that all of them got to the point by 30 seconds into the song. And by getting to the point, I mean, it was either the chorus or the, like, at least the hook or some sort of representation of the major theme of the song right in the beginning. And that is so interesting. It's like, all right, well, all of them have that. It shows that, like, well, A, what do we know about that? A, people have short attention spans. We already knew that. And so if you're trying to hook them, you got to show them the hook right in the beginning.
That's the whole point of that. That goes back to, and Justin makes a good point here. He said metal bands and fans have to stop shunning pop music and pop melodies.
Absolutely.
And then now he's saying if it wasn't for the popular hair metal of the 80s, we probably wouldn't have heard of Slayer and Metallica. The pop metal acts opened the door for less pop radio friendly bands.
Well, let's go even farther back. Let's go to Helter Skelter when the Beatles put that out.
Oh yeah.
Every metal band that has ever been, whether they admit it or realize it or not, were influenced directly by that song, because at that time when that song came out, it changed so much in the music industry. It showed that heavier music could be not only done by popular mainstream bands. I mean, the Beatles, when they came out starting with like Love, Love Me Do, and like really simple pop songs that were getting girls to scream over them. And then they said, all right, we're going to just do whatever we want now. And came out with all that crazy stuff. But yeah, absolutely. I mean,
well, there was also a lot of LSD involved at that.
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely changed a lot of that as well. But I mean, what people don't realize is a lot of times lyrics also are what make people not like the melody of a pop song, because I could genuinely name a million songs out there where the melodies are excellent, but the lyrics are just cheesy, so people write them off. But you could do on the adverse. This is a really cool example that I like to give people. You know, We Are the Champions by Queen, right?
Yes.
One of the most epic melodies ever. We are the champions, my friends. And it hits you so hard. And it's like, there's a reason that it's sung at every sports game. Now, let's change the words of We Are the Champions to this. I'm going to sing it and watch how much of a difference it makes. Ready? I love you, baby. It's true. And I'll never stop loving you. Now, all of a sudden, it sounds like a 50s love ballad that
I was just about to say that.
Exactly. But the same exact melody. All that's different is one song you're singing We Are the Champions, one song you're singing I Love You Baby. And so a lot of times people will write off a melody because the lyrics might be the I Love You Baby thing without realizing that the melody itself is brilliantly written. It's just a really, really good melody. And also there's vice versa. There might be melodies that aren't not necessarily a good melody. They might be a simple melody or something that isn't even much of a melody, but it's the phrase or it's the lyric that hooks you. And so I think they're both very important.
Well, the one thing that I've run into over the years, can you still hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. You know, and I've been accused of being an elitist many times. But one thing that bothers me about a lot of these pop rock bands, and I use that term very loosely, is that they'll write something that'll get played on the radio, but it's like they just kind of give you that feel like they're only doing it for the money. You know what I mean?
Well, sure. And there definitely is a case of that with a lot of artists. But for me, I mean, I try to like listen to each song individually. Do I enjoy this song? Yes. Do I enjoy this song? No. And I have my reasons why. But like, there are other pop musicians, like Bruno Mars is a perfect example. Like, whether you like his music or you don't like his music, objectively, he is an unbelievable performer. And I mean, he sings and dances for like 3 hours, and like that alone, the stamina and like vocal support and like the stuff that goes into that is unbelievable. And then also, I mean, I can rant forever about the production of 24 Karat Magic, but there's stuff in that album that is unbelievable. He took so many different genres and styles from the 70s and 80s and somehow made them applicable to today and made them #1 hits. And like, so he's an example of an artist that I think is awesome. There are other artists that I think are absolutely garbage, and genuinely, as time is going on, I think there's a lot more of the garbage ones that are showing up. I don't know if you saw Takesha 6ix9ine or whatever his name is put out a song today, and it's the #1 trending song on YouTube. And I listened to it, and it's probably maybe the worst song I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of really, really bad songs. And I came to this weird epiphany, like all the things that have made that guy popular are all the things I would never do because they would hurt my music career. He has face tats and like sexually assaults people and like snitched on a bunch of people and like has like rainbow hair and like his lyrics are horrible and his whole music video is just girls shaking their butts. Everything I hate about music, and that's what has made him popular. But to me, I just don't look at him as a musician. I just look at him as a performer or an entertainer or like kind of a modern day circus clown. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think of him as a musician. I think of him as an entertainer. And as an entertainer, sure, whatever he's doing is entertaining people, whether it be for good or for bad. Obviously, he has figured out something that has made it so that a lot of people, for some reason, are listening to him and watching him, whether it's controversy, whatever it is. The entertainment factor or value of what he's doing, I guess, is working. But I just don't think of him as a musician.
Oh, absolutely not. See, that's one thing that hang on, Justin said, let's see, what did Justin say? Rewrite the lyrics to Genie in a Bottle to be the Iceman Killer's confession.
You could definitely do that. Exactly. And speaking of Genie in a Bottle, if you go to the It's All Good Facebook page, there's a video of me doing our version of Genie in a Bottle, which is probably the heaviest breakdown I've ever written or played. And you know, I was in a metal band. It's heavier than all that. I'll send you the clip of it. And I metal scream during it, and it's how we close our show. And it's huge. It's not the Genie in a Bottle that you know, for sure.
Well, the thing that gets me about a lot of the people that come out nowadays, like they're influenced by all these older artists and everything, but they don't. It's like they're influenced by them, but they're not paying proper homage to them. If that makes any sense whatsoever. I see. I don't listen to the radio at all. Like, if I do, it happens to be like a quote unquote classic rock station, where I hear the same Zeppelin and Sabbath and AC/DC songs like every single time. But I find that pop music it's turned to shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but again, that's where. Like, I used to generalize like that, but now I try to take it in a song by song basis. Like, all right, so there's a song by, like, I'm not a fan of a single Ariana Grande song, really. I don't listen to her, even though I do think she is a talented singer, other than she has one song. She didn't write it. Max Martin wrote it, the same guy I was talking about earlier. And it's called Into You. And there's a video that I'd never even heard the song before, or I had heard it but just wrote it off as one of those other pop songs, right? And there's a video that this guy I love, he's an unbelievable musician named Rick Beato. He has an incredible music channel. His son, you might have seen, his son has the best ear in the world, like objectively, as far as like perfect pitch goes. He's that kid that at 8 years old, his dad would just like bang on a piano and he could name every single note that was played. It's crazy. But Rick Beato did a video breaking down this Ariana Grande song, and because he's a producer, he's able to show, he has like all the original tracks, so he can like solo every individual piece that build it up. And dude, when I was able to see it built from the ground up on like how, and again, this has nothing really to do with Ariana Grande. This has to do with Max Martin, the guy that wrote it. But like, dude, all of a sudden, that's my favorite song that's been written in the last 5 years, easily. And it's just because all of a sudden I was able to see that. So I do think that, yes, in general, a lot of pop music today sucks, but I try to take it from a song-to-song basis, because if I overgeneralize that too much, I might miss out on a song that I end up really liking. Like, I don't know if are you familiar with Zed at all?
No.
He is, do you know that song, so baby, why don't you just meet me in the middle?
No.
It's an awful cheesy pop song, absolutely. But it's a Zed song. It's all right. If you listen to Zed's solo music, like his albums, there's one song, it's the opening track. It is the most metal, even though it's all synth, he's like an EDM kind of guy. He's the only EDM guy I listen to. It is unbelievable. And there's this one section that my cover band is putting into our set. Dude, it's the hardest song I've ever learned in my life. Harder than any of the Apocalypse stuff. And granted, I'm playing it on keyboard, but the riff is, if you were to hear it on guitar, it would absolutely be like a metal riff. And it's so fast and the notes are so crazy. And like, I'll send you that too afterwards. But that's an example of like, I never gave Zed the time of day. And then when I did, all of a sudden, now the hardest song for me to learn is this guy that I threw off as being like some generic pop guy, you know?
Well, and I can understand stuff like that. Like I've heard songs that honestly I didn't think that I would actually enjoy, but the one thing that kind of bothers me about music, especially music that I actually was listening to back in my when I was a teenager, like let's take Green Day for example. Like they started out, and I enjoyed their early stuff before they made it big, and then of course Dookie and Insomniac and all of this, and now they've just kind of gone. I'm trying to think how to put this into words. They've kind of gone to shit in a way. Like you hear they're I mean, Boulevard of Broken Dreams was a great song, but at the same time I'm just like, this is not really a band that I really expected to hear this kind of stuff coming from and being played consistently and being played on pop radio of all things. When it comes to bands like them that have, to me, kind of shifted away from where they were. I mean, how do you feel about things like that, or what's your opinion on it?
So I think there's definitely twofold. I think that in order to have longevity in the music industry, you have to be willing to adapt. And I think that I'm not saying what that necessarily has to look like, but the bands that have had really long spit-it-danding careers are the ones that have been able to adapt with the times. Let me give you a perfect example. You know Panic at the Disco?
Yeah.
Now listen, way different now, obviously, than when he started, for sure. If he was still doing the exact same type of music that he did when he started, he would not still have a career today. And it's the same thing with Fall Out Boy. They've adapted as time has gone on. And I mean, the reality is as a musician, especially when you're making a living as a musician, right? A lot of times you end up getting faced with the choice of, okay, I either adapt my style so that I still have the chance to continue to play music and to continue to make the same amount of money that I've been making, which at sometimes it's not even a choice because they owe the label a certain amount of money or stuff like that, and they have to make that money back in order to be able to pay their bills and make any money themselves. And so it's really easy as a listener to be like, oh, I wish they had stayed true to their original sound and stuff. And I do think that you can have some, you can definitely have that, mentality. But if you're trying to be able to still do music full time and pay your bills and stuff, you got to be able to adapt and you got to be able to Like for me, rather than saying like, how do I make money doing exactly what I want to do? I say, how can I make it so that what I love doing is able to make me money? So like, I would not want to play just these stereotypical like cover songs in a cover band. I would never want to be in a stereotypical cover band. I would rather not play music than do that. But I am able to make in one weekend what I would make in a 3-month tour with this the Apocalypse. So how do I make that work? Well, I'm going to put on the most badass show I can. I'm going to write these remixes and make it so that people like you, when they hear a song that normally you'd hear Genie in a Bottle and be like, oh, I hate this song or whatever, are able to listen to it and be like, all right, I normally hate that song, but that version of that was badass. And that's kind of how I approach it. Like the songs I like, how can I make it so that I have fun playing them every night? And the songs I don't like, how can I make it so that they sound awesome and I can have fun playing them every night? Because I'm sure you've seen metal bands and stuff do covers of pop songs that you might not have liked that song, but you're like, this cover is badass. And that's
Right.
my goal with the cover band. And that's what makes it so that like I can enjoy doing it every night. And honestly, I think that's part of the reason we've had so much success is because people know when they come to an It's All Good show, they're going to hear the songs they love in ways they've never heard them before. And I think that's kind of what makes a little bit of the difference, you know?
Absolutely. And you definitely want to play to your audience, definitely, but you also want to play to your audience, but you want to do something different and not just give them the same old, every time. Now, I do have to ask you this. Now, you being in a cover band and everything, how often do you hear the word Freebird?
All the time. But I have like a bunch of different like responses. I'll say whatever people shout that out and stuff. And we know like the first like 8 seconds of it. We know the first 8 seconds of pretty much any song. So like when people request stuff, we'll kind of troll them and like play the very beginning and then just stop or go into whatever song we were going to play anyway. Or like somebody will, like some drunk girl will be in the audience and be like screaming either that or a different song. And I'll be like, yeah, absolutely. You guys know that one? All right. Yeah, we'll do that. And then we'll just play whatever song we were about to play anyway. And she'll look like real disappointed and like, wait, what? And like just kind of like storm off. But like, that's kind of our fun way of like, if we were comedians and you're trying to heckle us, we wouldn't encourage that behavior. And so like, we're just going to play what we want anyway.
Okay. So I have to know the first time that you guys ever did a show where someone yelled that out to you, what did you do?
Well, I guess with this band, I'd have to, because every band I've ever been in, even this is the Apocalypse, people shout Freebird.
Okay,
but,
anyway, give me your best Freebird story.
Usually I'll say like, yeah, I can do Freebird. I just need about 4 more shots. So if you buy them, I'll do it. And then usually like, oh, well, I'm not buying that many shots. Or I'll say like if they'll yell Freebird, I'll be like, we would love to, man, but like let's be honest, you don't actually want to hear Freebird. You want to hear the guitar solo and like the very end of it. And so we're just gonna skip the first 4 minutes and go to the guitar solo. Except for oh shit, I forgot our guitarist doesn't know the solo, so now you're out of luck. Like just stuff like that. Because I mean, to be fair, nobody wants to hear the first 3 minutes of Freebird. When they're shouting that, they want to hear da, 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 or they just are drunk and want to be an asshole and they think they're funny because they got to be the guy that yelled Freebird. But like, dude, every single gig we hear that. Every single gig. We'll play a gig and no one will be there, and somehow all of a sudden you'll hear Freebird and you'll turn around and it's just the bartenders and you're like, no, it was one of y'all.
Well, I think it's pretty much become like a concert staple now, almost, like especially in like smaller venues. It doesn't matter who you're seeing live, there's going to be that one person that's going to do it, and it's just a question of who it's going to be. You know?
Yeah. And maybe sometimes you look out of the crowd and you're like, which dude is it going to be? I know it's one of y'all motherfuckers. Like, actually, a really funny one. It wasn't a girl shouting Freebird, but do you know the song "Sex and Candy"?
Yes, Marcy Playground.
Yeah. She was calling it "Sexy Candy," And she was like blackout drunk. So the whole time I'm playing, she's walking around. And this was a gig where like on Sunday nights we do live band karaoke, and it's the most fun night of the week for me. I mean, it's like we have a big band with a brass section and everything that comes out, and like you can come up and sing with the band. It's such a blast. And this girl kept coming up to my keyboard and like leaning on my keyboard right in my face, going, "Sexy Candy, play Sexy Candy." And I had no idea what she was in Abbotsford for. I'm like, "What is Sexy Candy? I have no idea what the hell you're talking about." And then like she'd leave, and then she'd come out. She's like, "So you're not gonna play Sexy Candy?" And so finally we finished, and I'm like into the mic. I'm just like, "Just so you know, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, no matter who you are, there is nothing that will ever get me to play Sexy Candy, because I have no idea what the fuck that is." And it was great. I mean, and what was funny is we got a video of it and we posted it online of like that girl, and I posted a caption of like, "Yo, this girl was wild last night," and like so many people were liking it and sharing it and stuff like that. And somebody messaged me and was like, "Hey man, that's my cousin," and she was super embarrassed about that. She was like blackout drunk and didn't know what she was doing. So I ended up taking the video down, but it was hilarious. I mean, it was wild, and it was cool that we got it all on video.
And I showed that just a second of all. And Stu Dog said, I am not a fan of Freebird at all."
And what's weird, I don't really know many people that are. I think it's almost a meme. It's the same thing. Like, all right, so like when we do 500 miles, I would walk by. We go into the last verse, and right as we go into it, our drummer goes, and we instead rickroll him, and we go right into "Never Gonna Give You Up, Never Gonna Let." And it's so much fun because like the audience gets surprised. But like it's like that song, we do Africa by Toto, and like those are songs that like are great, but like they're also memes. And like that's kind of what it is with Freebird. It's kind of like nobody actually wants to hear it; they just want to shout it out.
I can see that actually, and I mean now I like Skynyrd. I'll give credit where credit's due, but when I listen to them, it's like I was talking about listening to quote unquote classic rock radio. You're going to hear the same songs over and over and over again, and see that's why I like to dig deeper into those records, is because you've got Saturday Night Special and That Smell. And
I was just gonna say That Smell. It's like Freebird. Don't get me wrong, Skynyrd is great. It's just that there's a million songs that are better than Freebird. If somebody shouted out they wanted us to play That Smell, that song I would love to do, because A, it's not overplayed. B, it's not somebody shouting it out just because they want to like be funny. They actually want to hear it. And C, that's just a jamming song. You don't have to get through 3 minutes of like slow guitar playing and like, "Yeah, I'm free," to get to like the point. It hits right in the beginning. And so I think that's like, yeah, that exactly. You're right on the nose with that.
And Saturday Night Special's always been, one of my that and "Give Me Back My Bullet."
Oh yeah, exactly. But those are rock songs. Those are like those songs slam.
Like there's groove in them, you know what I mean?
And Freebird has groove, but it's just not. You have to wait 3 minutes to get there. Like
exactly. That's one. Now I will say this: if when you guys start doing live shows again, I really think that you guys should start playing like do some old Skynyrd tunes. Sure. Like leave Freebird out, of course, and leave Sweet Home Alabama out, of course.
Well, so we do Sweet Home Alabama actually, but I remixed it, and we do a mashup of Sweet Home Alabama, Fat Bottom Girls, What I Got by Sublime, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And they're all mashed up into like a 10-minute, or like an 8-minute mashup where it goes between all of them, and it's really fun. And actually, we throw I don't know if you're a fan of what's their name? It's the Led Zeppelin sounding band that just came out in the last year and like brought rock back to the radio. Greta Van Fleet. Have you heard them?
No.
Oh, dude, I'll send them to you. So what's cool about them? A lot of people say like, "Oh, they just sound exactly like Led Zeppelin," and they kind of do. But like Dude, they had multiple songs that were in the top 10 of the Billboard charts, and they're just one guitar, one bass, drums, and the singer, and it sounds exactly like Led Zeppelin. So like for so long, people were like begging for a rock band to come out to get like rock back on the radio, and they did it. And like they're young, they're like 20, 21 years old. So like they're awesome. And also, dude, I'll send you a song that's gonna blow you. It's literally actually called Blow, but it's gonna blow your mind. It's Bruno Mars, Ed Sheeran, and Chris Stapleton, and the song's called Blow, and it is, dude, it slams. You would never know that it was the three of them. It's like the most raw rock song. They just did it together just for the shit of it. Like, it's fucking awesome. You will love it.
I was gonna say, like, if you wanted to try to combine a song with Sweet Home Alabama, because the riff in that song is like, and is immediately recognizable.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as you hear it, you know what the song is. Like trying to combine it and maybe like Walk This Way from Aerosmith.
Exactly. It has a similar kind of beat. And that's with the cover band stuff, especially what we do. We don't really ever play. There's maybe only like 3 or 4 songs where we play the entire song. Usually we do like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out. Or we'll just do verse, chorus, and then move to the next song, depending on how popular the song is. Because you realize, like, most people, they don't care about the second verse, and they don't care about, like, doing the chorus a double time. Like, so when you're trying, for me, we try to get as many songs as we can into the hour that we're playing so that we can hit as many different styles and stuff as we can. And the key to doing that is to get in, get to the point, and get to the next song. And, like, that's not necessarily the way to do it with other styles of music, but with the cover band stuff, that's definitely a way, because kind of with what we were talking about earlier about like adapting, whether we want to or not, there are DJs out there now, and they're way cheaper, and B, the sound quality to the general listener is better because it's perfect. They're just basically playing MP3s that they've mixed together. And so if a bar can get just as much of a packed house for a 1/5 of the price or a 1/10 of the price that they have to pay a full band, then why are they going to keep hiring bands when they have DJs that'll do it for a fraction of the price? And as much as I disagree with that, and I don't like believe in that mentality, I see it firsthand all the time. And so if we want to be able to compete with those DJs, we got to do a similar thing where the dance floor never stops, where you're just getting to the you know what I mean? Like just getting to the point and then moving to the next song.
Right. The Wanderer wanted to know, how do you feel about, if you have heard of him at all, an artist by the name of Thundercat?
That sounds so familiar. I don't know if I'm familiar enough with the music to make an educated opinion, but I am writing it down right now so that I can check it out later for sure.
And Justin was asking, what do you think of parody bands such as Steel Panther?
I mean, okay, so again with Steel Panther, I'm not as familiar with them as I should be, but I do think that parody bands are pretty funny, and I think that there's a lot of good ones out there. I know a lot of people that love that stuff. So I mean, yeah, there's lots of for me in general, over the years, I've tried to like hate on less music because I've realized it hasn't benefited me really in any way to not like something other than to like, you know, articulate my tastes. But like with the Takesha 6ix9ine thing, I'm hating on that because I just don't really think of it as music. But again, I can still acknowledge that he's doing something that I clearly didn't figure out how to do. So I try to find what parts, and a little bit of that is the fact that I'm lucky enough to be a producer as well. So like I can hate a Justin Bieber, like, okay, a good way to phrase it is behind the worst pop artist is the best producer. Because like it's easy to make fun of Britney Spears, right? But somebody in 1999, when computers, we were using what, Windows 2000 or whatever, somebody on a computer like that made her sound excellent and made the quality sound like really super clear and stuff. And if you know about production, that's not necessarily easy to do, especially at that time period. So behind the worst pop musician or whatever is the best, is like a really, really good producer. And so that's helped me to really enjoy a lot of music now that I wouldn't have enjoyed before, because I might have hated the song or hated the artist, but like I can appreciate it for the production that goes into it, you know?
Justin says in downtown Nashville on Broadway, there are several bars where they have both live bands and DJs on separate floors, and in some cases, the DJs are more expensive than bands. Bands play for tips only, while DJs don't get tips and have to be paid up front.
So that's interesting. I'm guessing that's because it's Nashville and there's an oversaturation of bands in that area. I know for the cover band industry, where we are, if you're in a cover band, you can make average. So like in the cover band industry, it's broken into kind of 4 categories. Let's say even 3. Let's just say A bands, B bands, and C bands. And technically you have D bands as well. And that sounds like you're like saying how good they are, but that's really not the case. It's more based upon how much they would get paid, and that is based on a couple of things. One, how much like what the production value of what they're bringing, because I mean there's some cover bands, man, that like every gig they play, it looks like any national act you would see. They have huge light shows that they bring everywhere, and like crews and stuff like that. And I mean they're huge, and those bands, honestly, they can make anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 a show easily. And that would be your main like big A bands, and then it goes anywhere between there down to, you know, D bands could be just an acoustic duo or something that might make $500 or $400 a gig. But I mean, my band averages anywhere from like 15 to 4 per gig, and that's definitely the next level right behind those like huge bands. But that's because we've only been a band like a year and a half, so we're still working on building up the type of following that those other bands have. But I mean, it really is it's a very lucrative business around here. But like I said in the beginning of the podcast, like this is definitely the best area for that, because there's so many different big venues to play in different cities and stuff. So, but that's definitely interesting about Nashville. My buddy lives down there, and he said stuff similar to that before, because he lived in Philly and moved down there. And he said, while there is definitely way more gigs that he can play, the money is not as good as it was up in this area. And I think it's just because, I mean, if I'm playing a casino, they're going to pay a lot of money because they're bringing in a lot of money. And like, and places like casinos, they have a set amount of money in their entertainment budget for the entire year that they're going to use either way. So they're able to do that. Whereas maybe these bars in Nashville, where there's a ton of bars on the same street, they don't have an entertainment value and also, or entertainment budget like that. And also they don't really need to have one, because it doesn't matter what they pay the artist. They're going to be able to find artists that are still good, that are willing to play, because everybody's looking for gigs. And I mean, it's a shame that it's that way, but it's the nature of the beast and of the business, you know?
Now over the years, like I've known, you know, bands from my local area that have, you know, gone to different places and played a few shows here and there, you know, maybe not like, you know, on the other side of the country or anything, but like a lot of them would always tell me that being on the road, and even just being on the road in general, is the best part of it, because it's the adventure and you're getting to do something that you love to do. But even though you're not making a lot of money at that time, because you're still, you know, relatively small, and you may not even be on like a tour, you may just be getting on the bill to play with other people in another city, it's still some of the best times of your life. I mean, looking back on your time with this or the Apocalypse, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I mean, and even with what I'm doing now, but like, yeah, absolutely. So for me, I was actually going to say that earlier, like my favorite part about being in that band wasn't like the notoriety or like even honestly, not even the music. It was like getting to meet people like you. And like, I have so many friends that I've met through music that I would not have ever had the chance to meet otherwise. And my friend, one time we were playing a boat marina, and afterwards some people invited us to go out on their boat, and like we got to hang out with them. And my buddy, our drummer at the time, turned to me and he goes, you know what's cool about being a musician? You get to do all the stuff that rich people get to do, but you don't actually have to be rich, because you just get to perform for them and meet them, and then you get to hang out with them and do stuff with them. And like it was kind of that thing. It's like you get to like literally performed in 48 states. I've been in every state other than 2. And all of that, with other than like when I went on vacations and stuff, like all of that is because of music. And if I had not studied music, if I had not gotten the chance to do music, I wouldn't have gotten to see all those places. Whereas instead, I have good memories in so many different locations. I have I have a good idea of like what the United States actually is. We get so caught up in the bubble of like where we live, and we kind of assume that like, all right, everything is like this. And then you travel around and you're like, oh, okay, everything is different. Like if I'm in Texas, that's like it might as well be a different country than when I'm in California, and that might as well be a different country from when I'm in Boston. And like a lot of other countries, that's not necessarily the case. We definitely are a melting pot here in the United States, and when you travel, you definitely see that firsthand.
So if you had to pick, and this is going back to the same subject, if you had to pick your favorite on the road story from your time with TOTA, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that I can say on air.
Hey, my brother, this is YouTube, and this is the Sanctum Sanctorum. This is a.
Oh, I know. Yeah, but I'm trying to think of like what I can say that without asking the other guys first. You know what I mean? It's more, it's not as much caring about myself. It's more about like getting a text from Rick tomorrow, like, dude, why would you tell people that?
Okay, all right.
No.
Let me rephrase the question then. Give me your personal best.
Yeah. I'm trying. Let me think. Okay. Here's a cool one. So we're going into Canada, and we get into Canada. It's our first gig into Canada, and we're sitting at the bar, or not even at the bar. We go to this restaurant because we wanted to try some poutine because we heard that was what you get. And we're sitting in this restaurant. This guy's sitting behind us, and he just turns around. He's like, "Yo, I got a ton of heroin, and like I don't want to do it alone. You guys trying to go to the bathroom?" And like I was just like, first of all, absolutely not, man. I appreciate the offer. You can go do that by yourself. But like no, like it genuinely was like, all right, Canadians really are way nicer than us because they're even just freely offering their heroin to strangers because they just don't want to do it alone. And like neither one of us are druggies like that. Like in America, like yeah, sure, people like offer to like smoke you up and stuff like that, and that's fine. Like you can smoke weed with friends and stuff. Never in my life had a complete stranger, and like he didn't even say it in a way of like he was like sketchy. Or he just turned around and like very politely was like, "Hey, I've got a bunch of heroin and I just don't want to do it alone. Do you guys want to go do it in the bathroom?" And we were just like shocked. I was like, that was the most polite way he could have possibly tried to get us to do drugs. So, here's another one. Actually we'll do, there's like 2 parts to this story. So we've broken down a lot. And one time we broke down in Arizona at a random gas station / diner / hotel, and one person worked there, and they worked all 3 of them. They worked the diner, and they cooked the food and served it. They worked, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like in the middle of the desert, miles from, literally 75 miles from anything else in either direction. So we break down, and no one will tow us because we have this bus and this trailer. And so finally, there's a cleaning lady that comes in once a day, and we're talking to her about like, what do we do, blah, blah, blah. And she mentions, there's this little Mexican lady, and she says that her husband, she barely speaks English, but she says that her husband can work on cars and stuff like that. So we wait, but he's not off for 2 more days. So we wait. At this point, we've already been there for like 4 days. So we wait 2 more days. It's been 6 days, and each of these days are shows that we're missing.
Right.
And so it's been almost a week, and he comes in and he figures out what's wrong with it. And we need these parts, but everything is so far away. There's nowhere that carries the parts except for we needed 2 parts. And one of them was in one direction, go figure, and the other one was in a store in the other opposite direction. And so Rodney, our guitarist, he hitchhikes 75 miles in one direction, and Ricky hitchhikes 75 miles in the opposite direction. And they each go and buy this part, and they get back. They leave in the morning. They get back really late that night, and and the guy comes in the next day and they work for like 2 days on the car and get the whole thing fixed. And I mean, even trying to jack up a bus is absolutely insane. And so, yeah, they get the whole thing fixed and then we're on our way. And, but then the second time we broke down, it was coming out of Vegas, and we had to rent a U-Haul because the van and everything was broken down. So we rented a U-Haul and we put all of our gear in the back, and we drove. We didn't want to miss the next gig, so we went, but there wasn't enough room. So we had to leave our tour manager and our merch girl in Vegas. And we were hoping it wasn't going to be long because they were going to stay with the van. And then when it got repaired, they were going to drive to whatever gig we were at and meet us there. And so we left, and it ended up being that it took so long. They were stuck in Vegas for 2.5 weeks while this van was getting fixed. But so we're on our way to the gig, and we're in the back of this U-Haul because there still was only like 2 seats up front. And so the rest of us rode in the back of the U-Haul on the gear. We like laid our blankets and stuff on top of the gear and just laid back there. And so we eventually, all of a sudden, so we're all in there, and like we had just left, I forget where we had left, but we had just left a place where marijuana was legal. And so we had like went to a dispensary and got like a bunch of stuff, and like idiots, we were hotboxing out the back of this U-Haul. And dude, we had driven for like 7-8 hours at this point, been completely fine. Ricky and Rodney finally switch, and now Ricky's driving. And within 2 minutes, we hear him banging, dude, we're getting pulled over. I swear, this isn't a drill. We're getting pulled over. Now, first off, we're smoking weed in a state now where it was legal before, but it's not legal in the state we're in at this point. And dude, and second off, we're in the back of a U-Haul crossing state lines with a U-Haul completely full of weed smoke. And so we get pulled over and we hear him talking to him, and immediately he says he's got to check the back. And we're like, oh my gosh. So this cop opens the door, and the smoke just pours out. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be awful. Like, we're so scared. And so he starts to try to search it, and he can't find anything. And our bassist Cody is so scared that he ends up, we had everything in this, it was like a stash can, so it looked like a can of Sierra Mist. And he just gives the cop the can, and the cop goes, no thanks, I'm not thirsty. And Cody goes, no, like that's where the weed is. And we're like, up. But he was so, because the cop kept saying like, look, if I don't find it, I'm going to bring the dog out. And like, if we find it, then it's going to be a lot worse. You know, he's using the typical jargon. And so he's just scared shitless. And so the cop writes us up a fine. Luckily, it wasn't like, it was whatever state we were in. I guess it was decriminalized or whatever. So you could only be like, you couldn't get, it wasn't a criminal offense for the amount we had. You just got a fine. Cause I think we only had like maybe an eighth or so. Like, it wasn't like we had a ton, you know? And so he writes us this, it was a $2,500 fine, which when you're a broke musician, that's like, it's a lot. And he writes it up, and then he's like, by the way, you guys said you're in a band. What's the band named? And we said, This Is the Apocalypse. And he just stares at us for a second, and we're like, okay. And he's like, no way. And we're like, yeah. He's like, dude, I freaking love you guys. You guys are on my workout playlist. Hold on. And he like runs to his cop car, comes back with his like old iPod, and This Is the Apocalypse is like all in it and stuff. And he loved the band. So he's like, we're signing stuff for him. He's like, God, I feel like an asshole now because I already wrote this ticket. Like, there's nothing I can do. Like, oh man, I'm so sorry. But like, all right, like here, like, I don't want to read about myself on Lamb Goat tomorrow, being the cop that like got you guys in trouble. So you just go on your way, like pay the ticket, and you're good to go. And he let us get back in the U-Haul and continue over state lines to whatever show we were going to that night. And I mean, we had to pay a fine, but it could have been astronomically worse.
Oh, absolutely. And the fact that he was a fan of yours had to have definitely played a humongous factor into that. Like, that was pretty much life-saving for you guys at that point.
Oh my God. Yeah. We signed posters for him and everything. And like, It was wild, but like, dude, that was definitely one of the most scary. I was just like, I'm literally laying in the back of this U-Haul, and they're all passing around a joint and stuff, and we get pulled over, and like, we're like, well, I guess we're going to jail. We don't even know what state we're in, or like, and this was like 2013, so it was way more looked down on than it is now, where like everywhere it's pretty much decriminalized. Or I wouldn't say everywhere, but a lot of places, you know. So it's wild, man.
Okay, well, kind of sticking to the same the same kind of topic. Being in that band, the big number one, what was the biggest show that you got to play with them? And number two, who is like the biggest band that you guys got to open for?
So I guess my biggest shows, we played twice. We played South by So What, which is like South by Southwest, but like for metal. And it was like a huge festival. And we were actually headlining one of the stages. So we were at the very end of the night, and we were actually going right before Bring Me the Horizon, who was on the main stage. But we were playing while they were setting up, right? And so Teddy bear, that's awesome. So we were, I mean, it was going to be insane, right? We played the year before, and it was awesome too. It was the same type of thing, but we weren't headlining. This one, we were headlining the other stage, and dude, I'm sound checking my drums. We're literally about to start, and I'm looking out, and I mean, it's just a sea of people. It's like everything I'd ever like dreamed of. And dude, all of a sudden, this storm starts rolling in, and everything starts blowing, and like starts pouring. And they literally, as we're starting the very first song, they stop everything, and they tell us we all have to get off the stage, and they're trying to cover everything, and we all had to just go. And when everything ended, and they stopped, the other band, Bring Me the Horizon, didn't even play that night. I think it was Bring Me the Horizon. I could be wrong, but it was either them or A Day to Remember. It was like one of those like really, really popular metal bands. You know what I mean? So they didn't even get to play, and. But dude, I went back and my drums were destroyed. My mixer for my click track was destroyed. All my cymbals were soaked. It was awful. And so what we actually did after that tour is we stripped my whole drum set down, and me and Rodney refinished it. And it ended up looking like that. When you saw it, it probably looked like that, where it looked kind of like burned and like had like these like giant black spots all over it that looked cool. It looked like, it ended up looking cool, but all those black spots were actually water damage from when it got rained on.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Now I do remember that set, because I think that's the one that you were playing when you guys both times you guys came through.
Yeah, I had that kit the whole time. It was just the first set, or the first tour. It had like an actual like drum set finish and like looked like a normal kit, and then we ended up finishing it to make it match our amps and like all that stuff. So
who is the biggest band that you've got to open for?
Probably like August Burns Red, or like, I don't know. The biggest is like such a subjective term in a way. You know what I mean? I guess the biggest fangirl one for me was when we were on the tour with Sleeping Giant, because when I was into Christian metal, like that was like one of my favorite bands. And I remember like being at a concert and waiting, or like at a festival and waiting like 4 hours in the front row just so I could be front row to see Sleeping Giant, and like losing my mind for their whole set, and like going back and like telling my parents about how awesome it was. And like, that was a concert I would never forget. And then all of a sudden we were asked to be the co-headliner of it was like they were the headliner and we went right before them. For like their new record release and stuff like that. And it was just like, that was definitely a surreal moment for me, because my band was getting to go on tour and like hang out every night with like this band that I had really looked up to when I was younger, you know?
So if you had to put like your dream, like just say for example, if you were still in This or the Apocalypse, if they were still together, and you had to put like your dream tour together, and you guys were either gonna headline or co-headline, who would be who would be at least 3 bands that you would like to have on that tour with you?
And are these bands that like even if they're not together now, it's kind of more like because I love Dillinger Escape Plan, but they're not a band anymore. Like, could I still use that type of stuff? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Whether they're still together or not together anymore.
Okay. Yeah, definitely, probably Dillinger Escape Plan, because it also, I guess, would need to be metal bands. So Dillinger Escape Plan, Between the Buried and Me, and So, and then probably there's this band called Gem. You probably haven't heard of them, but it's the bass player from Dirty Loops, which is my favorite band. It's the drummer, Matt Gartzka, from Animals as Leaders. And
I love Animals as Leaders, man.
Yeah. And then it's the keyboard. It's this like YouTube keyboard prodigy guy. And it's like they're just a trio that Minor Cymbals put together. But it's some of the dopest like music I've ever heard. I would love to tour with those guys. But I mean, on that same Sleeping Giant tour, the opening band was Silent Planet, and they were like just starting at the time. And now, I mean, they're huge. They're all over the place now in the metal scene. And so it was really cool to be able to tour with those guys before they kind of like broke out and kind of became their own thing.
Now, when I've seen you, the 2 times that I saw you guys play, you had Sworn In with you the first time. As a matter of fact, hang on just a second. I don't know why I didn't think to pick this up, but I actually have still in my possession one of the signed tour posters from one of those.
Oh yeah.
Let me find. There it is. Because you guys were headlining it, and this was actually, I believe, this was the first one. It was, yes, this was the first one. This was Sirens and Sailors, Shadaloo, Sworn In, and then you guys.
Yeah. That was another cool one that, like, having Shai Hulud on that tour, because they were huge when I was way younger, and like, so just being with Matt and stuff, that was definitely an interest for Ricky. I know that one was really special because Shai Hulud used to be his favorite band, and he started this with the Apocalypse. So imagine starting a band and then having your favorite band from high school open for your band. Like, he picked them out to be on that tour. He really put in strong for that because that was our headliner.
Yeah. Now Shadaloo, that's the band that Chad from Newfound Glory used to front, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And it took me years to put that together, and then it finally hit me like a couple of weeks ago. I was going back and I found that poster, and then I was listening to some old Newfound Glory, and I'm like, now wait a minute, he fronted another band, I know. And I went and looked it up, and I'm like, holy shit, that was the same. That's the same band that I saw, but it just didn't have him fronting them, you know.
Yep.
Which they were amazing. I never really listened to them that much before, but after seeing them that night live, I was totally sold on that. And then Sworn In was unreal.
Well, yeah. What was cool with Sworn In was when they got on that show, they originally were going to be the opener because they were just kind of getting out and touring and stuff. And then they had they blew up overnight. I don't know if you remember that. They came out of nowhere and just blew up. So by the time the tour actually happened, they were bigger than This of the Apocalypse was at that time. Like, they were trending and all that stuff. And so there were so many shows where it would be wall to wall packed with teenage scene girls, and they would all leave as soon as Sworn In was done. And all the guys in their mid to late 20s, that was all who was there to see This of the Apocalypse. So it was just such a drastic dynamic for that show. But yeah, it was wild, man.
Now, the second time you guys came through, I can't remember who was all on the bill that night. Now, I know Life Curse, they opened for you guys on that one.
They weren't on the tour, but I think they were on the show.
Yeah, they came down. Yeah, because they're a band from Memphis, so they came down from Memphis.
Yeah, there was like two other bands that were randomly like on that show. I remember that.
Yeah, because I remember because that was the because me and my buddy, we actually paid to get into the show, and then we actually just ended up spending like pretty much almost the entire show except for Life Curse and you guys sitting with you and I think Cody and all the guys in Life Curse, like just sitting around gear and just talking until it was time for them to play. And then and then they went on, and then we all went back outside, and then there was another band that was playing right before you guys, and then like I don't even remember seeing half the show, just Life Curse and you guys. That's all. That's like only thing I remember.
Oh yeah. And well, the thing is, and people get upset at band. I hear it all the time. People like local bands will complain and be like, I can't believe that the touring bands like didn't sit in and watch all of our sets. Like, how can you even support the local scene? But like what they just don't realize is, I mean, you got to give your ears a break. You got to give your body a break. And hearing music loud like that every single night, like over and over and over again, it all blends together and it can drain you out really, really, really quick. And so some of my favorite parts that we're talking about are those parts where like before the gig, you're able to like sit with people that have become your friends and that you only get to see when you're in that area. Because it was kind of like the same way that like when we were in Tulupo and stuff like that, we would hang out with you. We kind of had like somebody like that in each of the areas, and you get excited when you're going back to that area because you're going to get to catch up with that friend that you haven't seen in a while, and you know what I mean. And so that to me was my favorite part, was just getting to like see those people. And I mean, that was when I was still single, so a lot of the times it was getting to see the same girls again. But like, but I mean, just as much so was seeing dudes that like I could like shoot the shit with and talk with and stuff, you know.
I still remember that very first show. Like you guys had came in Olive Garden and ate lunch that afternoon.
Yeah, you were working. Yep.
Right. And then like you guys were leaving just as I was getting off work. And then I ended up driving down to the venue because you guys told me just to, you know, come down and hang out with you. And so I drove down there. I got there like 5 o'clock and sat there with you guys for like, what, almost 3 hours and like just talked with all of you. And then, you know, and it's so that, and honestly, that's one of the cool, and I've met, you know, a lot of the people in music that I look up to and that I've bought the records and everything over the years. And honestly, to this day, that like when I tell people like when they're like, well, who have you seen live and who have you got to meet? And I'm just like, well, and honestly, I mean, getting to hang out with you guys is one of the coolest stories that, you know, that I have. And you guys were, when I found out you were coming back the second time, I'm just like, there's no way I'm not going to be there. Like, I don't give a shit what I got to do. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go see my boys and I'm going to hang out with them for a little while. But
well, that ties back to like exactly what I was saying earlier with like, you never like, what if you had just decided to like leave like an hour early that day from work? Like somebody asked you like, hey, like you're good to go early. You can clock out or whatever. Like we would have never met and we wouldn't be having this conversation now and you wouldn't have heard about that band. And like, it's the same thing I was saying earlier. Like you never know what situations might lead to something way bigger and like, and different, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, because I mean, I was going to the gig that night anyway, because I knew the guy who had brought the tour to town. And I was like, okay, I haven't been to a show in weeks and, you know, this is going down and I don't live too far away. So like, of course, I mean, I lived like maybe less than 10 minutes from the venue. So I'm like, of course I'm going to go. But then when you guys came in, and to this day, I wish that my boss had let me wait on you guys, but he wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
But it's always like you were talking about earlier, like getting to meet. That's one thing that, okay, and it goes back to another subject, but to get to meet bands, like especially bigger bands, like especially in, because like, okay, let's take this for example. Let's say like you go and see, just say you go and see like Blink 182, and that's a weird example for me to use, but you're not gonna see them at their merch table. You know, they're not gonna be going out of their way to talk to people and hang out with them and all this other kind of stuff. Maybe after the show, possibly after you have to go and, you know, stand behind a fence or whatever. And I've been to shows like that.
Yeah.
But when you go to smaller venues and you see guys that are in these bigger bands walking around the crowd or sitting at their merch table or something like that, and you actually get to interact with them, that really makes it in a way. And honestly, a lot of the coolest people that I've ever met as far as bands that I've seen live, and of course it's been, you know, mostly metal and hardcore shows, they're some of the nicest people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like I saw when I went to see Mayhem a couple of years ago. Now, of course, I didn't see them at their merch table or anything, but I did get to meet their drummer Hellhammer before the show, and I got to meet their lead singer Maniac and all this. But there was a band from New York. I don't know if you're familiar with them, called Immolation. Have you ever heard of them?
Sounds familiar.
They're a big like death metal band from New York. And there was another band opening for them called Black Anvil. Well, after the show is over, I look up and the drummer from Black Anvil is sitting at their merch table. And I look, and the bass player and lead singer from Immolation and their guitar player are sitting at their merch table. And I went and walked right up to them, and I was talking with them, and they were just some of the nicest guys ever. You know, and that's one thing I really respect about bands that will actually do that, is because, number one, a few years ago or however long before, when they started, they were right where I was. They were standing in the crowd, seeing their favorite bands and getting to talk to them and interact with them and everything. So they're still a fan themselves. But number two, they're very humble about it, because they know that if it wasn't for the people in the crowd, they wouldn't be where they are right now, and they really appreciate that. And
absolutely, yeah.
so to be able, like when I went to that Thy Art Is Murder show, I got to meet all of those guys, and these guys are from Australia, you know, and they've never been to the South before. And here's just this big ball-headed dude, you know, talking with them, and they're just as nice as they can be. And I think that's one thing that really kind of puts me off about mostly pop music in general, especially now, is they're not. I don't think a lot of them are really humble. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, yeah.
Like they're doing what they love to do, but they're not doing it on a humble level to where, you know, they really want to interact with people, or what, like, you know, anybody in a band can respond to a fan's like tweet or Facebook post or whatever, but to actually walk up to that, like a fan walk up to them and like shake their hands, like, listen, you know, I love your music, this, that, and the other, can I get a picture real quick or whatever, you know, that's what I really appreciate. Like, I like being able to interact with guys that their music that I love and that's gotten me through hard times and everything like that. Like, I got to meet, and if you go to, and obviously if you've looked at my Facebook, like you see, like the main picture on my Facebook is I'm standing there with Phil Anselmo from Pantera. I'm standing there with Mr. Pantera himself, you know, and this is a dude that I've looked up to since I was 16 years old. And he was actually the reason why I put the drumsticks down and picked up a microphone. And I'm getting to stand there and talk with somebody that I've looked up to since I was a teenager. And I got to tell the man thank you for what his music and his art had done for me on a personal level. And the man hugged me and he said, "You don't know what it means to me to hear you say that."
Yeah, for sure.
And for somebody like for the simple fact of the matter of standing there talking to somebody who has been in one of the most legendary metal bands of all time, to have traveled the world multiple times over with every single band that he has, to stand there and be hugging this fan and telling him thank you because I just got to tell him what his music has done for me is it's the most refreshing thing in the world. Basically.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, him hugging you and telling you that, he probably didn't realize how much him doing that to you meant to you. You know, like that's like when I'm on stage and stuff, and I see people that are there all the time at our shows and stuff, like, and I'll come up and I'll grab their hand and like give them the mic to sing and stuff like that. To me, I might not even remember that situation because it happens all the time. But to them, that might be a situation they never ever forget because that might have been their first concert, or that might have been the first time anybody ever handed them the mic or interacted with them, or they were having a really shitty day and now all of a sudden this has made it a little better. So I try to be really aware of that with the karaoke thing I was telling you about earlier. It's so humbling, man, because when we started, the reason the bar asked us to start doing it is nobody was there. They were making like maybe $50 in a whole night on Sundays. And now if you don't get there by 10:30, you're not getting in. Like it's wall to wall packed every single week. And there's like a list of like 150 people that are trying to sing. But what's crazy is I had done it for a year and a half or something like that and never had this realization. Somebody came up to me afterwards and that had sang that night and said, I've been coming here for over 6 months, and every week I keep almost getting the courage to sign up and sing. And I, and then I go home and I kick myself for not doing it. I pick out a song and I practice all week. Because, I mean, think about it, they're going to be singing in front of a ton of people, so it is obviously nerve-wracking. But he goes, and tonight was finally my first week singing. And, I mean, I didn't remember even really what the guy had sang because, like I said, it sometimes can all blend together. But this conversation stuck with me, and he said, this was the first time I've ever sang in front of people in my entire life, but my whole life I've always dreamed of what it would feel like to hold a microphone and sing in front of people. And you have no idea how cool this was for me tonight. And I would have never known any of that if he had not told me. But him telling me that changed the way I see everything now, because I never know how much what might be, I don't want to call it a meaningless interaction, but like a simple interaction on my end that I might not have even noticed might have completely changed someone's life. And because of that, now I am much more aware and present for all of those little interactions because now I've had that realization,
Absolutely. And it's like, when I got to meet Phil, I'm standing there and I'm talking to him about, because it was because of guys like him and, because of guys like him, like I found out about a lot of the other bands that I really love, like Crowbar and I Hate God and Soylent Green and Acid Bath, a lot of that New Orleans metal that I really enjoy, and a lot of older bands that I had never heard of before, like Godflesh and Righteous Pigs and like old Helmet records and the Melvins and the list goes on. And it was such a and honestly, and this is and then a lot of people don't know this, that show took place on October the 28th of 2015. 1 month later to the day, my dad passed away. And I look back on that experience with two things. Number one, I'm getting to meet the man who, because it's like when I was talking with him, I told him very specific. I remember what I said to him. I said, I just want to tell you thank you, because it doesn't matter what it was, if it was Pantera or Down or Superjoint or any of your underground stuff, it's gotten me through something at some point in my life, or it's made made me cry. It's given me strength. It's given me hope. It's helped me get past some anger that I'm dealing with. It's saved me on more than one occasion. Mm-hmm. And number two, I believe, and honestly, and I believe this wholeheartedly, I believe that meeting between he and I happened strictly by the power of the universe, because little did I know what was going to happen a month later. And I think that was just kind of a way to kind of give me hope because something tragic was about to happen. Little did I know, obviously. Mm-hmm. But and it's like when I got to hang out with you guys, that I'm just like, man, this, like I went to work, like not the next day, but the day after. And my boss actually walked up to me and he was just like, so how was the show? And I'm like, oh, it was great. Like I spent like 3 hours just hanging out with them and all this. And he was just standing there and he was like, and you could tell he's not into that kind of music or anything like that, but he was just like, he was standing there smiling the whole time because he could tell like it had such a big impact on me and everything. But
absolutely.
But I think that's one thing that a lot of musicians really need to get back to, is to kind of get back to that fan mindset. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Let me devil's advocate both sides, right? I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he was talking with somebody else, this comedian that he was talking to, was talking about how he reads the comments and he tries to reply to a bunch of them and stuff like that, which is awesome. I totally, I do that as well. But Joe pointed out the fact that on Instagram alone, Joe Rogan's got 10 million followers. And so look how many comments that would be. And for him to try to keep up with that would be insane. And so I think there is also a certain level where if an artist, it sucks because if an artist tries to keep up with every fan they have, it could drive them insane. But also if they don't try to keep up with that, then people might label them as disingenuous or being an asshole or something like that. And what I've realized, I mean, for me with It's All Good shows, dude, like after the show, I will go up and I will talk to every single person there that wants to talk to me. As long as that takes, I will be there and I will do that. But before the show and in between sets, you're not going to see me at all. You're going to think of me as that singer. Oh, that's that asshole singer who doesn't leave his dressing room. No, it's that I do 250 shows a year and I lose my voice easily. And the easiest way for me to lose my voice is when the club is loud and the music's going and I'm trying to talk to people. And now I'm blowing out my voice and I'm misusing my stamina because I still got 2 more hours of music to perform. So for me, that's when I meditate. That's when I focus on what I have to do next. And it's my me time. And then, hey, if you stayed till the end of the night to see this band, awesome. And I will stand there and I will talk and have a conversation and a relationship with every single person there. But that's something I never really understood or thought of until I was in that position, especially as a singer, where it really is really easy for me to blow my voice out. And then I'll start third set and have no voice because I spent the last 30 minutes of the break talking with a bunch of people while the DJ's playing and I'm yelling. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's one reason, like, I don't mind going to like arena shows. I mean, I've seen cool arena shows. I've seen, I saw Pantera back in high school. I've seen, oh God, who else have I saw Disturbed in an arena. And I actually got to meet David Draymond and the other 2 original members of Disturbed.
Yeah.
But when it's bands that I really like a lot of the New Orleans bands, like when I go, I've seen I Hate God twice live. Yeah. Amazing show. I don't know if you've ever listened to them. They're just, they're a lot of screaming, but the music it's slow and it's down tuned and it's just that sludge sound, that sludge New Orleans groove, But I've got to meet Jimmy Bauer, their guitar player, more than once because I've seen him in other bands that he's in. But when I got to see I Hate God twice in smaller venues, I walk up to the merch table and there's Jimmy Bauer and Mike Nine just chilling, and I'm just like, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And I'm standing there talking to them and everything. Which the other end of the story that I was talking about when me and my brother were in Memphis, Jimmy was the first one that we ran into, and I was standing there talking to him, and I told him, I'm just like, this is like the 4th or 5th time you have met, that he and I had met. And I reminded him of when he and I had met, and he noticed the Masonic ring on my hand. And he was just like, and he would always say the same thing. He's like, the Masons are here. And I'm just like, yep. And I've got a brother with me this time. And he actually invited me and my brother to go with him, the drummer, and the bass player from Superjoint Ritual to go and eat dinner with them, like at this sushi joint down the street. And we were just like, hell yeah, let's do it. And we're sitting there with Jimmy Bauer and the drummer and bass player from Superjoint Ritual, and we're talking music and philosophy and drugs and just whatever, man. But it's like the coolest thing in the world that we're getting to do this. And it's like I was saying, I think a lot of bands, if they can get back to that fan mentality, that I think that a lot of them would be a lot more well received, if that makes sense. Because like you take a look at a band like Metallica. Okay, Metallica, yeah, they'll go and like they'll stand out behind a venue for hours and sign stuff and this, that, and the other. But I think I think a lot of it now more has to do with money, especially when you look at somebody like Lars Ulrich. Which, no offense to Lars, he was the drummer that inspired me to learn how to play at the time. But I think if a lot of them could get back to that fan mentality, maybe, and like kind of humble themselves a little bit more, I think you could really, instead of them throwing out a record every 6 months or a year or something, they actually put out something that they realize it's something that the fans really want to hear. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, I just think there's always like, so like if we did the math of it, right? Like let's say I'm a big artist and I engage with 10 fans every single day, right? After a year, I've engaged with 3,600 fans. Now let's say I'm an artist and I engage with 100 fans every single day, right? At that point, I've engaged with 36,000 fans in a year. But if I am a band the level of Metallica, I might have 36 million fans. And so even if I was to try to engage with 100 people a day, which would take a lot of time, eventually I'm only hitting 36,000 people a year, which is only 1% of my total fan base. So it's like, I see both. Like, I think the bigger thing is like quality over quantity. Like, put out personal stuff to your pages that isn't just you putting out albums like you're saying and stuff like that. Like, do an intimate live stream or do something that like can make it so that you can reach out to lots of fans at the same time. I think we definitely need artists to do more of that. And I think that is a little bit of one of the perks of this virus and is all the live streaming. I'm watching, I don't know if you know Rick Springfield.
Oh yeah.
Dude, on his Facebook page, he's putting out content every single day. And I know he sings Jesse's Girl. Other than that, I've never been interested in like following him at all. Now I watch his videos every day because they're fun. They're hilarious. He did a 10-part series on how to play Jesse's Girl, but it's literally just every video, it like something terrible ends up happening. His guitar catches on fire or like an earthquake happens. And like, they're hilarious. And like, it's that type of stuff that I think more artists need to do that would help them to really reach out to their fan base from all over the world.
Absolutely. And I've seen a lot of posts about that and stuff on Facebook. Like I saw the band Goldfinger. They were doing kind of a live stream thing from different, obviously from different locations, and it's all being mixed together. But they were doing a lot of their classic songs and putting, streams out or live performance style kind of stuff like that. And I think that's one thing that, and one thing that I have noticed is a lot of labels now, like Discord Records and a lot of these old like punk rock labels and stuff, they're putting their full catalog out for people for free, so people have stuff to listen to and all of that. Hang on, what is Miss Teddy Bear said? Oh, that intimacy can be seen live from Daryl's house. The live streams that Daryl Hall has done over the years.
I was just watching Daryl Hall did one with CeeLo Green. With CeeLo Green, and it's cool because CeeLo Green, I mean, he's a pop artist, and like not necessarily one I listen to, or like I know "Fuck You," and I mean, Gnarls Barkley was pretty dope, but like seeing him with that group, like it was those live stream sessions from Daryl Hall's house. It was so cool, and all of a sudden you get to hear CeeLo sing in a way that you would never see him or hear him sing regularly. Dude, the one that blew my mind, you know, T-Pain, the autotune guy. Dude, so he is known for autotune. He was kind of who made that famous. And you think of T-Pain, you're like, oh God, he sucks. And like, it's all autotune. Dude, he did a Tiny Desk session. Are you familiar with Tiny Desk sessions?
I've heard of it.
It's like this live stream, but it's like where big bands come and they just play like stripped down acoustic versions of their stuff. Dude, no autotune, no tuning at all, just him and a piano. And it was beautiful and brilliant and like excellent. And it was so cool to see that, because now forever, I'm going to have a different opinion on T-Pain. It's the same thing with Lady Gaga, dude. If you watch a video of Lady Gaga, people don't know this, but Lady Gaga has her master's degree in piano performance from Juilliard.
Yeah,
it's not easy to do. So
I did know that. Now I know that she's also fascinated with a lot of the same like philosophical subjects that I like to read about, like the Golden Dawn and Crowley and things like that.
Dude, she is brilliant. Yeah, and the thing with her is, if you listen to the way she originally writes these songs, it's her and a piano, and the piano parts are beautiful. And then eventually they adjust them to make them pop songs, because like we were talking about earlier, her goal as a pop artist is what will reach the most amount of people and be listenable and tangible for the most amount of people. But then you hear her do these like acoustic concerts, and she does these jazz versions of her songs, and it's beautiful. And the thing is, dude, I feel very competent in music, and I still don't have my master's degree in piano performance from a prestigious school like that. She does. So there are certain pop artists that, like, if anybody deserves to be at the top of the musical food chain, it's somebody with their master's degree in music from Juilliard. You know what I mean? Like, she's kind of so.
Now you were talking about T-Pain just a moment ago. Did you know that he was on an episode of Squidbillies? Have you ever watched Squidbillies?
I know what it is. I've not watched it enough to be like familiar with it.
He was on an episode of that show like several years ago. And it's really, really quick too. But I'll have to send you the link to the video of it. But he was on that, and I worked at a pop radio station for about 2.5 years, and you know, and even the guys that I worked with knew that was not the style of music that I'm into. Yeah. But you know, just being able to work in the radio business was what I was more focused on. That's one reason why I started to do these live streams, is because it's just like doing radio all over again. Except I'm not sitting in a studio, across from somebody. I'm sitting on my Chromebook on the internet. It's a little bit different. And it's like Teddy Bear was saying, I miss live music. I really, really do. And this whole thing that's going on in the world right now has kind of put a damper on all of that. And you kind of have to figure, number one, I mean, you have to wonder when all of that's going to start up again. And number two, if it will at all. That's one thing that kind of worries me. Or, are we going to get festivals again? Or are we going to get, concert tours or, things like that? Or are we all going to be just kind of confined to our homes, staring at, our smart TV or our phones or tablets or, laptops or whatever, watching a concert from home? Yeah. Are you guys going to be doing any more streams, or are you just going to wait it out? I mean, what are the plans?
We're planning on doing another one next month. I'm actually going to, there's like a comment thing on the side. It says chat with host and guests. If I post a link in there, will they be able to see it?
No, that's the private chat for here.
Okay. If I post it though, you can copy it and post it there?
Yes, go ahead and post it in the private chat, and then I can put it into the. I can put it.
I can see the live comments. Oh, but I can't.
Your Facebook page is in the description of this video. So anybody, if anybody that's watching right now, if you actually go to the description below, you're going to see a link for the It's All Good YouTube channel and It's All Good Facebook page. So they can keep up, they can subscribe to your channel and like you guys on Facebook and keep up with you. I made sure to go ahead and put that out there for you.
Yeah, that live stream link, man. I mean, and shout out to the crew, but like I was blown away with like how well it all came together and came out, and like that was so fun. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise because like if we were playing gigs, we would have never done that, you know. So Teddy just said T-Pain won the first season of The Masked Singer. Yeah, dude. I mean, he's unreal. He's real good. So, but yeah, man, it's definitely if I can give one band that everyone should listen to, because they're a pop band, but they're from Sweden and they shred harder than any metal band you've ever seen. And I know that seems like a big claim. As soon as I show you, Chris, your mind is gonna be blown. They're called Dirty Loops. If you're not familiar with them, unreal. Best drummer in the world. By far the best singer in the world. Their manager is Quincy Jones, and who worked with Michael Jackson, like all the greats, Prince, all that stuff. And Quincy Jones just said a few weeks ago that Jonah Nilsson, the singer of Dirty Loops, is the most talented musician he's ever seen in his life. These guys are gonna, I mean, it's unreal. It's a blend of pop and funk and metal and like it's unreal. So I'll link you to that, but look up Dirty Loops. They will blow your mind. You will become addicted immediately. And what's really cool about them, because when you see them, you're going to be like, oh, so this is clearly a band that a label put together where Quincy Jones just took the best musicians he knew and put them together. But that's not it at all. Their families were friends. They met when they were teeny little babies. They've been friends their entire lives. They all just happened to get this unbelievable at their instruments. And to this day, that's what they're doing. It's unbelievable. So that's my one takeaway from all of this. If you get nothing else, check out Dirty Loops, because they changed my life, and I think they'll change yours too. And it also, like we were talking about how pop is a reflection of the culture. Dirty Loops is one of the biggest pop bands in Sweden. They're one of the biggest bands there. And when you listen to music, they would never, ever, ever be able to be a top 40 band in America, because they're way too complex and like Musso and just talented in general. But the culture in Sweden, if you're familiar with like Swedish metal and stuff like that, all around is just crazier. There's crazier fucking people there. So check it out. Dirty Loops is amazing.
Definitely. Okay, so this is something that I've decided that I'm going to start doing when I have people on who do music. I'm going to throw some names out, and I want to know, number one, if you're familiar with them, and number two, if it's someone who has influenced you at some point in your musical career. So I'm gonna throw 5 at you. This will be the test run of this little segment here.
You just want kind of my opinion on them.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're gonna start. We'll start with David Bowie.
I think, all right, so David Bowie, excellent singer, excellent songwriter. I think he did a lot for, as far as the way he dressed, and like, especially during that time, like he had to have gotten a lot of shit for that, and he didn't care, and he just did his thing anyway, and people still liked him because he was just badass and awesome at what he did, and I think it was really sad when he died.
Are you a fan of Mr. Bowie, and has he had any kind of influence on you at all?
Yeah, definitely. I've actually covered a David Bowie song before. I forget which one we did. But there's, I think David Bowie's great. I think he's awesome, and he's actually somebody I listen to a decent amount.
All right. Number 2, someone who could, in my opinion, be considered a modern day version of David Bowie, Marilyn Manson.
So when I first heard about Marilyn Manson, I thought he was the devil himself, because I was still super religious back then. But then my first time I ever heard any of his music was on, I had gotten a Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack, and there was a version of, it wasn't What's This? It was This Is Halloween that Marilyn Manson did. And it was so cool. I loved like the synthesizers and stuff. And then I watched interviews of him, and it's funny because he is the definition of don't judge a book by its cover, because the dude is brilliant. I mean, when he talks and stuff, he's brilliant, and even his outlook on like loving other people and like being kind to one another is like way more loving than most Christians I've ever met. So like it really he personally changed my entire outlook on like individuals at that time of my life. It was cool. But musically, I don't know how much he's necessarily influenced me musically, just because I've never really done music like that. But as far as like that genre and style of music goes, he's definitely like my top go-to.
What do you think? What do you think of the covers he's done over the years? I mean, of course, he's known for his cover of the Eurythmics' "Sweet Dreams." Mm-hmm. He did the Patti Smith cover on the "Smells Like Children" EP, like way back in the day. But now, over the years, he's done several more. He covered "Personal Jesus." He actually, not too long ago, put out a version of "God Will Cut You Down" from Johnny Cash.
I heard that. Yep.
That was amazing. And he actually, this was a few months back, but he did a cover of "Cry Little Sister" from the Lost Boys soundtrack.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Oh, if you've not heard that, oh man, since you're in a cover band and you like stuff like that, go and listen to his version of that. And he did it properly. He actually like got the children's choir and everything mixed in there with it. So he did a really, really good job with that.
Well, and that's one of the things I really like about his covers is the fact that he has a way of like making it sound like the original, but at the same time it sounds like a Marilyn Manson song, but it's like that song.
Oh yeah. All right. Number 3. Let's jump a little bit further back to what we were talking about. Let's talk about
real quick before you ask the next one. I don't know if you can go on a tangent about something real quick. I have to pee so bad.
Okay, go ahead. That's no problem.
Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
No problem. This will give me a chance to catch you guys up on a few things. Now, as I was saying earlier, when Aaron popped out due to some unknown technical error, now this coming up a week from today, I will not be doing a live stream. I will, however, be doing another live stream either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a open, not necessarily an open forum, but I'm going to be putting together kind of an open discussion / debate. I have my buddy Justin lined up. Stu Dog, I don't know if you're here, but I would love to bring you in on that. If you're not here and you finish watching this, send me a message on Discord. Let me know when you would be available, either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And I still have maybe 1 or 2 more slots to fill for that particular stream, and I will let all of you know more about that here within probably the next 24 to 48 hours as soon as I can get some more people lined up. Guys, while I still have another moment, if you're watching this, I hope you're enjoying the show today with my buddy Aaron Maloney from This or the Apocalypse and the frontman of It's All Good. And also hit the subscribe button, like the stream. I would really, really appreciate that. You guys have really made this so much fun for me, and I'm going to keep doing it. You guys have really basically inspired me to keep doing this, and I really, really appreciate all the support. Let's see here, Wanderer. Do you know what the topic is? Actually, I haven't really thought up necessarily a topic, but what I'm thinking about doing is maybe just writing down some ideas and putting them in a hat. And when I started, be like, we're going to be talking about insert topic here. So I'm going to kind of try to piece that together. It's going to be the first kind of open stream that I'm going to be doing without a guest. And because when I do it on Saturdays, it gives me more of a chance to try to line somebody up to come on and talk with and just kind of have some discussion and everything. But I'll keep everybody up to date. Wanderer, if you are on Discord, if you'll message Stu Dog, just send him a DM and see if he can send you an invite to my Discord server, and go ahead and get in there, and that way I can keep you up to date as well.
Sweet.
So, welcome back. I was just kind of catching everybody up on what's going to be going on, because I'm not going to be doing a stream a week from today. I'm going to be doing one earlier in the week because my work schedule this coming week is a little different. So if we're going to do what?
Oh, the Teddy Bear asked where the link to the live stream is, and he actually posted the comment right above you. You'll see the Facebook / It's All Good Music. That's the link to our live stream. It's a good date night. It's like an hour and 40-minute set, and you'll see everything kind of goes right into each other, and that's the band I sing for. So,
all right. So number 3, we're gonna jump back to what we were kind of talking about earlier, and actually, this is going to be number 3, but there's going to be 2 bands involved with this, and I want to know which one you prefer between the 2. We're gonna say the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
I'm gonna go with the Beatles.
Any particular reason, or are you just not a Jagger fan, or?
No, I like the Rolling Stones as well, but I think just from an objective standpoint of the Beatles put out so much music in such a short time, and they drastically revolutionized not only the music industry but the recording industry, and like what was done with having 4 tracks and stuff like that at the time. They did stuff that nobody had ever done, and I think if it were not for the Beatles, there would be no Rolling Stones.
I could agree with that.
But I do also like the Rolling Stones, but I just think the Beatles are probably the most influential band of all time, whether people realize it or not. I actually took a history class in college that was all about the history of the Beatles, and I just learned so much just about like what actually like they have done for the music industry in so many different ways. It's cool.
Do you have a favorite Beatle?
Probably George Harrison.
George Harrison. I've always been more.
He seemed the most humble, because like John Lennon is a great songwriter. He was just a really shitty human being. Like he would have never survived like being alive right now. Not as far as just like with the Me Too movement and with like all that stuff. Like he beat his significant others. He was a horrible dad. He was like said a lot of. I mean, he literally has a whole song that I forget what it is, but I mean the whole chorus. He just like screams the N-word like over and over again, and like he was just not necessarily the greatest person. Paul McCartney, I think, is a genuine dude, and like I like him, but I just think George Harrison kind of like he just seemed like the most real out of all of them. And Ringo, he just kind of seems like he was there hanging out with his friends.
Actually, my mom is a Beatles fan, and I asked her one time. I said, "Who's your favorite Beatle?" And she actually said Ringo. And I'm like, wow.
Well, and a lot of people do say that because I think he is the most. Ringo is the guy that makes regular people feel like, oh, hey, I could do this too. Like Ringo, he's just a regular guy. He's just enjoying playing the drums and stuff. I will say this for Ringo Starr, he is a human metronome. It's really crazy. None of the Beatles stuff is recorded to a metronome, but just because they didn't do that stuff back then. But you can put on a metronome with Beatles songs, and Ringo Starr is like right in time with the metronome for nearly the entire song, and that just shows an unbelievable amount of timing and skill, and that's step number 1 to being a good drummer.
Absolutely. So now, and going to the Stones real quick. When you're performing, do you kind of channel your inner Mick Jagger?
What's weird is I don't feel like I do, but other people constantly will reference him when they come up and talk to me. They're like, "Yo, you reminded me of Jagger," and I'm like, "Thanks." I guess I mean, because I know Rolling Stones music, but I've never really watched enough of their stuff to make a informed decision on that type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Okay. Number 4, we're gonna switch switch genres here, and we're gonna go back a little further. And this was somebody that I mentioned just a few moments ago, Johnny Cash.
So I enjoy Johnny Cash. I like a lot more the Highwaymen. Do you know who they are?
Oh, absolutely.
I am a really big fan of Charlie Daniels and the Charlie Daniels Band. I mean, literally my favorite song ever written is a Charlie Daniels Band song. Nobody really knows what it is, but it's about doing acid and going on this crazy trip. And Charlie Daniels sings it and wrote it, and it's brilliant. I'll send that to you too. It's called Rainbow Ride. If you have not heard Rainbow Ride by the Charlie Daniels Band, it is unbelievable. It's on the same album that Devil Wore Down in Georgia is on, but it's the very final track on the album. And it's all about doing acid in the 70s, and it's really, really cool. But for those of you who don't know, the Highwaymen is Charlie Daniels? No, not Charlie Daniels. Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and dude, that whole album is great. And like, so that's my favorite Johnny Cash stuff, but I do enjoy Johnny Cash. He's probably not very much of an influence of me because I'm a tenor and he was a baritone bass, and
yeah, because he had that duet that he did with June I believe it was June Carter. Daddy sang bass, mama's,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I would consider the Highwaymen the four horsemen of country music.
Absolutely.
Okay, and the last one, we're going to. I'm gonna throw a curveball out there.
All right.
George Clinton.
No idea who that is.
What?
I'm looking up right now. Should I?
I'm talking about George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic, dude.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna have to look him up. He looks wild. He looks like an older CeeLo Green.
Okay, all right. Well, since you're not familiar with George Clinton, I'll give you a mulligan on that one.
All right.
You're lucky you're my friend. Otherwise, I wouldn't give you a mulligan.
Well, the good thing is I'm gonna look him up now, so because he looks awesome.
Okay, we'll take it back. We'll take it back into a completely different genre altogether, and I'm gonna go with Snoop Dogg.
All right. Yes. So Snoop Dogg he's Snoop Dogg. Yes. Cool. But here's the two things that have blown my mind about Snoop Dogg. A, have you heard his Snoop Lion album?
I have not.
Dude, it's excellent. It's all reggae. And what he actually did is him and the producer Diplo went to Jamaica and lived there for a year doing this album and studied Rastafarianism, studied with the people there, learned all about it. And dude, that album is excellent. And then also, people don't know this, but Snoop Dogg put out, I think it's called The Gospel of Snoop Dogg or something like that. And it's actually a gospel album. And it's 100% like gospel, like just like you would hear in like any church. And actually a ton of churches do these songs now. They've kind of become staples, but it's Snoop Dogg. So literally when they put the lyrics up on the screen where it gives like the copyright information, it says Snoop Dogg. Dude, but his gospel album was the #1 selling gospel album from that entire year that it came out. And so the fact that he's been able to go from gangster rap to like the more modern rap to an excellent reggae album to an excellent gospel album, it's just, I think him and as an artist is awesome. I also love what he's obviously done for the weed movement and that he was smoking weed publicly before. It was cool. And like, I think Snoop Dogg's awesome. He's one of the people that I would love to just like hang out with. And I think that he's so many artists have a negative story arch where they're one way and it gets worse and worse and worse. I feel like Snoop Dogg went from like being gangster and talking about like killing people to like now he's just talking about like peace and love and like hanging out with people he cares about and like doing and just smoking some weed. Like he's at a very positive arch, you know?
And that album is actually called Bible of Love.
That's what it is. Bible of Love. Dude, it's cool. But if you have to pick one, listen to to the reggae album. It's fun. It's especially if you're gonna smoke or you're gonna do something. It's just a fun one. He actually has a song on that album with Miley Cyrus called "Ashtrays and Heartbreaks," and I'm not really a fan of Miley Cyrus, but that song is so good. And if all Miley Cyrus's songs sounded like the style of that song, she would be so good, and so many people would like love it. I mean, look up that song "Ashtrays and Heartbreaks" when we're done with that on that Snoop Lion album. It's dope. It's really, really catchy. And it's the same thing we were talking about earlier with like, you got to have a really, really good, like that catchy melody. That's a song that as soon as it gets to that chorus, you're like, okay, yeah, this is an objectively good melody. I can hear it and I can sing it back, and like it's going to get stuck in my head. It's really, really good.
You've given me quite a bit to look up, so my music agenda is going to be pretty full for a few days.
I'll send them all to you.
Well, Aaron, we've been going for about 3 hours, and I know that you've got a pregnant wife that you need to be attending to. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap this up a little bit. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Aaron, thank you so much for coming on, my brother. I really, really appreciate it. So once again, guys, check out It's All Good on YouTube, on Facebook. Give them a like, give them a subscribe on Facebook. Give them some support. Hopefully once all this pandemic and everything is over, maybe you guys can maybe you guys should like look into hitting the road and traveling a little bit outside your comfort zone, maybe.
Yeah, we'll go wherever our agent sends us. He just gives us the dates and we go and play. So, but that would be great.
Definitely. But Aaron, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Sanctum Sanctorum. I'm Widow's son. I really, really appreciate everyone so much for coming in today. And I will see you guys early part of next week. And until then, peace be with you.
Boom.